concussion. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for war, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize, right girls, let her tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan, if you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that, stop that, stop that.
It's got to be the biggest victory in the history of Vanderbilt sports, right? Of any kind. There's never been in the history of Vanderbilt sports, I don't even know the history of Vanderbilt sports, but there simply cannot be a bigger, better victory than beating Alabama.
I can't hear Jeremy through the back.
He hasn't said anything.
Yes, he did. He just said something.
He was telling David that they're a great baseball school. They've won multiple college
David, he
World
was talking
Series.
to you personally. He was not talking on air.
It's that seat.
It's not that seat. That's the Greg Cody seat that he needs to be sitting in if he's not going to understand who's talking on the air and who's not talking on the air.
Welcome, David.
Welcome, Izzy, as well. I want to...
Yes, Dan, though. I do want to talk about that real quick. Biggest Vanderbilt football win in history. Wow. Can we say that?
I don't think there's a bigger basketball win. They've had big wins, but they haven't had a win that I remember like that one. Like what? Baseball? Like give me anybody out there. Give me whatever you got that's bigger than beating Alabama when I've got the stat somewhere. I think the last 3 times, this was from Timothy Burke, I think the last 3 times that Vanderbilt has played Alabama, they've lost like 150-3 the last 3 times.
I know how it could have been bigger if Saban was still coaching. It feels a little smaller. Saban not being there just takes a little bit away from it.
No, Chris, they just came
it
off
does.
a huge win against Georgia. They're the number 1 team in the country.
Just saying, if Saban was there, it'd be bigger.
Doesn't feel the same.
We're trying to see if we can get Reese Davis. The stat from Tim Burke is 148-3 the last 3 times that Alabama has played Vanderbilt.
It was their first time beating Alabama since 1984. Most of this room had not been born yet. Emphasis on most. I'm sorry, Izzy.
There are all sorts of stats from that game that we'll get to in a second, but I do want to celebrate what it is that the University of Miami did for a second, because Cam Ward had 277 fourth-quarter yards. That's the most any player has had individually in 7 years. And I looked this up, okay? Iowa didn't have that many yards for the game against Ohio State. Michigan State didn't have that many yards for the game. UCLA didn't. Missouri didn't. FSU didn't. Tulsa didn't. Air Force didn't. Purdue didn't. Duke didn't. Jeremy's UCF didn't have 277 yards for the whole game against Florida. Rutgers and Nebraska played a game, and neither one of them against each other had 277 yards in the game. Stanford didn't have 277 yards in the game. Do you know how absurd it is to produce a fourth quarter that hasn't been produced by a single player in 7 years?
It's the regular season. Why is everyone so excited about this? Am I missing?
Because it's the biggest comeback the University of Miami has had in a century. They were down, the statistics on what it is that they were down, David, they were down 35-10 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. They were down 38-18 with 10 and a half minutes left in the game.
Against
and they were
an unranked team.
They were down 38-25 with 4 minutes left.
But this Saturday, David, was the Saturday where all ranked teams lose to unranked teams. This was the disease that was going through college football on Saturday when 5 of the top, I believe 11, had already lost by the time got on out there. And they're playing classic Atlantic Coast Conference rivalry game within spitting distance of the Pacific Ocean against Cal, and they were down 25 points in the second half, and they're a top 10 team now. So, yeah, something there mattered, and they came back dramatically with probably the Heisman Trophy favorite.
I think Cam Ward was third in terms of gutsy performances. It was Reese Davis first. Second, it was Michael Irvin. Third, it was Cam Ward. Michael Irvin, I mean, that's impressive. The passion. I mean, is he the mascot? What is he?
He wasn't sweating so much this time.
This is what happens when College Game Day goes to Cal. It unleashed some sort of weird portal into hell Saturday morning, and we were all rolling around in it. It was one of the strangest Saturdays of college football in my lifetime, and the capper was Miami and Cal going till 2 a.m. Eastern time, and Miami coming from behind with that win. Some controversial calls at the end, a lot of people unhappy with the ACC refs for a second weekend in a row, but it was a really incredible college football game. Justin Wilcox, the Cal head coach, he is not going to sleep well for a while after giving up that lead. But it was a big game, David. It was not a ranked team versus a ranked team, but it was huge for the momentum of Cal going into that game, having game day there for the first time and playing so well just until the last fourth quarter.
After benefits 2 weeks in a row from, all right, whether they were right calls, wrong calls, they benefited from calls late in the last 2 weeks. We can all agree on that. Can we agree that we're even for the whole national championship thing?
No.
It's 2 weeks.
Why?
That national
No.
championship, they're even. We call it even,
No.
and that's it. I mean,
Terrible
Dan,
at
these
math.
last 2 weeks, they could have easily been losses.
Agreed. One was for the national championship. These two are just Virginia Tech and Cal.
One more bad call, and then they're even.
David is doing from this seat what Amin did on Friday when we had 506 yards from Kirk Cousins and Pete Alonso hits a homer. And now David and Amin, this is a terrible thing to have happen, okay? If you work at McDonald's all your life, eventually you don't like the French fries anymore. David and Amin have been watching sports for so long, they're numb to great sports things. They've gotten old, and sports things that happen that are exciting don't excite them. It's not possible to titillate them.
Wrong. I get titillated all the time. Several times a day.
How-
Watching
Whoa.
games all day long.
How can you not
Maximum titillation.
How can you not watch a team come down from 35-10 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter to win on the road and say, what's the big deal, when it's the biggest comeback they've had this century?
Because it's October 5th.
Yeah, but David, they're 6-0. All the other teams have lost. It's only the third time this century that the Hurricanes are 6-0. And this is the part that I think is going to be funny, because you can have two losses and still get into the playoff. You can't trust college kids to be consistent. Not players, just college kids. College kids of any kind. It doesn't make any sense that Alabama would lose that way against Vanderbilt after playing that way against Georgia.
To your point, Dan, before this game started with all the upsets, I was like, this is going to happen. UM is going to fall into that category because they always do. This is going to be the sad Mike Ryan game where he comes back and he says, oh, we're back to work, but really back to work this time. This was going to be it. And they come back, and in the college football 12-team playoff era, yeah, you could have one or two of these slip-ups, but when you avoid them, man, that feels great. And you can think, now, I'm not only certainly getting into that top 12, I might be one of those first 4 or 6 seeds, or whichever ones get to buy.
But especially if you were resigned to losing that game, which you kind of had to be at 35-10. At 35-10, you had to be resigned to the University of Miami's not going to come back from a 25-point deficit, even if I trust that offense.
I just knew they were going to come back. I think because I've just had so much tough luck this year with college football. I knew as a lifelong Cal Golden Bears fan, I wasn't going to get this one. But
were you watching?
Yeah, I actually did stay up.
You stayed up that late?
I stayed up
because it was Saturday?
But I did keep dozing off, and normally when you doze off during a late college football game, someone scores and you kind of wake up. But Reese Davis, he was so consistent in his inflection, because that poor man, his voice, it was very Stugotz-like at the end of that game. Sort of slept through a couple of those ones. But when I woke up, David, I knew that this was just not going to happen for Cal, and I felt so bad for my fellow Golden Bears.
Nobody did Saturday night's game better than me. Fell asleep around mid-first quarter on the couch, woke up around 2 a.m. with 30 minutes left. It was the best. I was just like, what did I miss? I think it was like
That's
I think
exciting
it was
for you, not
38-25.
knowing what you missed.
But I was just like, holy shit, I'm witnessing a game, and I watched the final end of it, so I saw all the end.
Do you spend your time catching up? Because I've done that before, and instead of watching what's live, I end up trying to catch up on what I missed when I've dozed off.
I
and then
texted
you
my-
end up missing what's so great about now.
I actually texted my dad because I'm like, I bet he fell asleep, and he actually stayed up, which is the biggest shocker in all of this.
I'll tell you some of the things you missed, okay? Cam Ward's pick six is as bad a throw as anyone has ever made in a University of Miami uniform. And all of the California players, I was deeply thankful that they got together in the end zone, and all of them started Karate Kid crane kicking. All of them were crane kicking in the end zone to celebrate what they thought would be a victory. Also, that Ott kid for California is very fast.
Jaden Ott, he's pretty good. OTTTOGO, Dan.
I want to
Jaden
play
Ott
for
was
you
set to
guys.
go.
Excuse me, Jessica. I want to play for you guys Reese Davis being exhausted just so that you guys can see. Look at this here. This is one of the things you missed, Chris. And I want you to just listen to Reese Davis on the call because he was called in an emergency. He had done game day, and I think Dave Fleming was out for personal reasons. Listen to this call and listen to how Reese Davis doesn't have any idea what's going on here. It's the single worst touchdown call I've ever heard. Listen to this.
They just scored.
Whistles. And they signaled the touchdown. Damian Martinez.
That touchdown happened like 2 minutes ago.
That is a much-needed score for the Canes.
Yeah, really impressive drive by Miami. Damian Martinez.
Jessica's feeling terrible for Reese Davis.
I do. I mean, you guys are so mean to Reese. He had a long day. The band had a long day. Their call time was 2 a.m. for game day. This poor Cal marching band. The fans were up all day. They were just going crazy. It was such a great college football scene. I love when game day goes somewhere they've never been before, and they invigorate a fan base that everyone just sort of doesn't really know anything about. And so we got the woke versus Coke game for the ages. And as many have said before me, we all should have known when this game went to 2 a.m., Coke was going to be victorious.
It's rare that the internet takes an L quickly because you could tell the internet was like, why are they going to Cal? What a weird game day. And within an hour, all the tweets were, this is great. This fan base showed up. It's rare that the internet takes an L.
To your point, Chris, when you talk about the officiating, Brock Osweiler said, and he wasn't wrong, that is an automatic targeting call. That was his analysis of a targeting call that should have been a targeting call that would have ended the game in Cal's favor. And we can do that if you guys insist on doing officiating talk, but I'd really rather talk about Cam Ward.
Let's do that, because my favorite Reese Davis call was one where he was saying how calm and relaxed Cam was as he was getting attacked by defenders, and eventually it was a terrible play, and he's like, well, maybe there he was too calm. And so I'm curious, Dan, how you sort of take in Cam Ward as somebody who's watched UM quarterbacks your whole life. He does seem calm, collected. He seems to have control of everything, but he also seems to play it a little too cool sometimes, and I'm wondering if that's going to come back to bite him.
It will.
You're done with this. So you think that this win and their prospects are...
I'm not done. You don't have to be absolute about this. He is not afraid of making mistakes. That's what I want from my quarterback. He's not... Look, one of the things that happened on the pick six, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he throws the pick six, and I'm like, this is a disaster scenario where they're going to lose and lose badly on the road. And the first thing that happened in the middle of the field while the California players are crane kicking in the end zone is Restrepo and Cam are both slapping each other on the head in the middle of the field. Don't worry, it's fine. He's not afraid of anything. Like
Miami Herald said that Restrepo said, we already know you're going to lead us to this comeback.
He's not
down 25 in the third quarter.
But you say that every time you're down, and it happens. It works out once in a while.
You are really doing things to this game. Like you're squatting over the game, and you're simply on this game.
Not a visual I wanted.
Yeah, no, that's not the visual. I'm trying to bring perspective to a show that is overreacting to the game.
Cal had lost 10 straight games to ranked teams. They were 1-26 against top 10 teams the last 20 years, and the only team that they beat is Washington State. You can have a measure of perspective and still be awed and hyperventilate about the fact that you don't often come back from 25 down when you're down 25 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter.
I see where David's coming from. It's not a huge like Power 4 matchup. This is a Cal team that is new to the ACC. They've struggled. This is why they've never hosted College Game Day before, because their double-digit win seasons are very few and far between. However, it was a big comeback. So, maybe Miami shouldn't have let Cal gash them so much in the first half, let up I think it was 5 plays of over 50 yards.
So many 50-yard plays.
And that's fair. But still, a comeback, especially ACC football after dark, it was a fun environment. It was a fun college football game. And I think, as a Miami show, I get why everyone is feeling excited about Cam Ward today and the comeback. Even though, like I said, not good that 2 weeks in a row, Miami playing a little down to the competition, could be very easily 0-2 right now in the ACC, which would be a disaster. But both times coming away with wins in these sort of late game comebacks.
Miami could easily lose at Louisville, and I do believe that we can say pretty absolutely with conviction they'd lose and not be favored against 5 SEC teams. There are 5 SEC teams that I wouldn't favor them against, because even though they're 6-0, they've been exposed the last couple of weeks, allowing so many of those 50-yard plays. I was a little bit torn, though, because a kid from Miami was playing quarterback for Cal. I've got to root for Fernando Mendoza. How can I not root for Fernando? Izzy, you were going to say, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, I was just wanting to counter sort of David's take here, because when you look at what a national champion ends up being, I'm not saying that the Canes are going to be national champions, but every single game that is not a loss can be super dramatic. I remember when the Gators won and Tim Tebow lost a game, I believe, to Ole Miss at home, and I believe they were unranked at the time, and he gave this dramatic speech, and they came back and won the national championship that year, and everybody pointed to that loss. If UM goes ahead and wins the national championship, they're going to point to probably the instant replay against Virginia Tech and this game right here as the most dramatic win, because they probably don't go the same path and win a national championship if they lose this game.
Yeah, no, they won't. If they win the national championship, they'll go to the CFP and the rounds they had to win the national championship. No matter how you slice it, Miami's season won't be defined by this. Do you think the Patriots, when they came back to beat the Falcons, is that noteworthy because it was the Super Bowl? That's my view. It's not noteworthy week 4.
Okay, so the only game that matters is the last one? There are no other memorable games except for the last one.
There was is Buffalo Frank Reich. He had a huge comeback. Somebody help me.
Yes.
And
Buffalo against the Titans. Yes.
But it was early, and they didn't end up winning.
It was the playoffs.
So it was exciting. That was the playoffs.
Okay, but we can't talk about the playoffs because they haven't happened yet. So we're talking about this game.
There's so much else going on. I've got 70 pages of amazing
you just
things.
mentioned Frank Reich. It's a memorable game, obviously, if you're mentioning Frank Reich.
David, the show is 5 hours long. We'll get to baseball, okay?
I'm not feigning enthusiasm about this. I don't even understand how David arrives at his position of watching that particular game that has led our audience. How many songs do we have, Chris? How many?
2 songs.
We've got. Do you know how rare it is for a game to produce 2 songs to motivate and inspire our audience? Play one of them, please. Which one is this? What's the context for this song?
This one is just celebrating how late this game went and just what a crazy game it was.
All right, let's hear it.
Handoff. No, he throws. Left side of Arroyo. He lunges. He's got it. Touchdown. It's a touchdown. Miami has tied the game.
The Golden Bears, right out the gate, they had us dead to rights for most of the game. I'm thinking, why is Cal even in the ACC? It's just like Miami to disappoint me. And I had some gin and tonics, or 8. Then the Canes got the dub that day. They came from behind, 'cause Cam Ward is great. He's got Heisman hype, and we're the best team in state, 'cause we can pay guys 6 figures.
What a comeback on a day when upsets abounded.
I don't know if I've ever
sounds
seen
exhausted, Reese Davis.
anything play out like the way this football game did. And the Miami Hurricanes coming back down 35-10 in the second half.
Life is a golden cane. It's pretty damn good.
I just saw her in concert. It was an old person concert with Sting and
No, that's Andrew Streeter.
Pearl Jam and Devo and Alanis Morissette.
Do they end with Whip It?
They did not. It was their fourth song. It was weird that Devo would choose that as their fourth song instead of ending with it. They didn't even do I Can't Get No Satisfaction. California had never hosted a game day. California is rarely a full stadium. It doesn't happen very often. You give no weight to that, David? You give no weight to them being strong enough with the momentum of having a day's worth of energy behind them and getting up 35-10. You still shrug your shoulders at that.
Don't mischaracterize it. I'm not shrugging my shoulders. I'm merely saying that allocating this amount of showtime and saying that this Cam Ward, and it was an amazing performance, but it's not the proper time to give him his flowers for this moment.
It's too soon, Dan. It's clearly too soon.
He has
soon.
more yards
Thank you.
and more touchdowns than anyone in the sport.
I'm not on your side here, David.
I know.
When do I get to celebrate
Felt
him?
like you could have been.
When do I get to celebrate him, if not when they're 6-0 and he's got more passing yards and more touchdowns
I want
than
you to
anyone
want
in
more.
the sport?
I want you to celebrate in January.
David, if this was
It's
hour
not
2,
January.
if this was hour 2, I'd be with you. We're in the middle of the first segment. Like, give us a Christ, man.
Jeremy's over here with a bag over his head because his team in October is awful. Lost to Colorado and Florida in back-to-back games, and he doesn't even want to show his face. It's okay to spend 11 minutes talking about Cam Ward and the Hurricanes, a top 10 team, winning what is it, after prime time?
After dark.
After dark, winning an after
old
dark
Pac-12
game,
after
which
dark.
they've never really had before. I thought it was pretty dang cool.
Why do broadcasters think it's dangerous? And like when it gets after midnight on a broadcast, they're like, "Welcome to after." It's just like Mike Tirico did this last night. Once it turned midnight, he mentioned it like after every play. He's just like, "Hey guys, it's midnight football here."
That's not creepy at all.
I know.
Tirico.
I just don't get they just feel. Do they feel dangerous? Like they can get away with a little more?
They know things are getting wacky.
Can you guys get for me again the touchdown call that happened after midnight? Because I want to play for you. And I don't even mean this as an indictment of Reese Davis. He was clearly tired. He'd been working since 4 a.m. His voice didn't work correctly. I'm going to tell you, though, when the score was obvious, and I want you to hear all the sound afterward. They're at the goal line, and they're scoring. Go ahead and play it. And they score. Go ahead and play it. Right there.
Whistles. And they signal the touchdown.
What is Brock Osweiler doing in the booth, you think,
Martinez
there?
Gets it in.
A full 9 seconds
That is a
after the
much-needed score
runner
for the
crossed the
Canes.
goal line, he announced the
I'm
touchdown.
picturing Brock Osweiler in the booth like, "Go, Reese, this is your time. Go."
What was the local time?
It was a 7:30 local kickoff, so in the fourth quarter is probably like, I don't know, 10:30.
Do you carry cash? That's a fine for all of the phlegm that you just threw all over the microphone because you didn't clear your throat without the microphone off. Do you have $5? Do you carry cash?
Or did you do that to celebrate Reese Davis? Because that's next level.
Yes, that would have been comedically artistic. Jessica, can you explain to me what happened in the Vanderbilt-Alabama game?
Yes, I can. Okay, Vanderbilt-Alabama was incredible. So Clark Lee is the head coach at Vanderbilt, and I want to start with him because he went to Vanderbilt, he played fullback there, and then became a linebackers coach in college football, became a defensive coordinator. He's actually the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, and the team that went to the playoff a couple times. He's coached a ton of NFL players. He's a great coordinator, and then he gets a call to come back to his alma mater and coach Vanderbilt, be the head coach at Vanderbilt, knowing all of the sort of resource limitations and all of the disadvantages that you have as the head coach.
But Nashville's on fire these days.
At Vanderbilt. Well, yes, Nashville I wouldn't mind moving from Indiana to Nashville either. But anyways, that's besides the point.
That's the biggest recruiting pitch they have, right? We're in Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's awesome. So Clark goes to Vanderbilt, really up and down 3 seasons for him. His second season, they actually do pretty well. I think they won 5 games. They won a couple SEC conference games, which is nothing to be snarky about, Chris Cody.
You were going to sneeze at it.
He was about to sneeze
right?
at it.
You were going to sneeze at it.
And you were like, he had a good season. I'm like, oh, let me hear what
Almost
this was
went
like.
bowling. I mean,
5
it's
games.
It's Vanderbilt football. Like Vanderbilt football is the butt of every joke in the SEC. Like when people talk about conference realignment, they're like Vanderbilt needs to get relegated before the SEC gets bigger because they're like not even on the same competitive level. Whatever. Blah blah blah. So, anyways, Clark Lee goes back to his alma mater. Has had a lot of ups and downs, but in this past offseason, they bring in a ton of these New Mexico State players, including last year's CUSA Player of the Year, Diego Pavia, the quarterback, who led this amazing Vanderbilt offense on Saturday. They also bring over the offensive coordinator, the head coach, and I think a tight end, a running back, and a couple other players. So Vanderbilt has this like new sort of unique spread option offense that they're running on Saturday. And Alabama coming off this huge emotional win over Georgia at home, the Georgia comeback, and then the Ryan Williams touchdown, everything. They go to Vanderbilt, a team that historically they dominate, destroy. Nick Saban has said previously, Vanderbilt's the only school in the SEC that is easy to play at. He's mocked them. And so Vanderbilt is aware of all of this. Clark Lee is aware of all of this. Clark Lee played at Vanderbilt, like I said. But Clark Lee has taught his players and has told his players they can win any game that they want. Like this,
Vandy culture.
like you laugh at like David. You're kind of like rolling your eyes at like Restrepo and Cam Ward being like, "Oh, we can win this game," like, and that's what everyone says. That's not true. Sometimes college football teams do not think they have a chance, but Clark Lee's Vanderbilt team actually thought they had a chance in this game, and they started the season really well. They beat Virginia Tech, which was a huge upset early in the season, and then they almost beat a top 10 Missouri team in overtime. Basically lost on a missed field goal in that game. So Vanderbilt is kind of coming off of like, okay, like we have something here with this offense. And Clark Lee, obviously very good defensive mind, like I've mentioned. So they're ready to play Alabama. They run this kind of unique, weird offense. Pavia is a absolute maniac. I mean that in the most complimentary way. Like he is the perfect point guard for the offense that Vanderbilt's running. And Alabama defensively was just on their toes the entire time and was not able to stop this offense. And so Vanderbilt scores 40 points on Alabama in this game. Alabama's offense not able to overcome that, even though they did have another great Ryan Williams touchdown, 58-yard pass, and the end-around touchdown at the end that was pretty nifty. But it turns into the biggest upset in, I think, in Vanderbilt football history.
It has to be.
And Clark Lee gets to say, as the head coach that comes home to his alma mater, against all the odds, he upset the number one team in the country at home in front of the home fans at an active construction site stadium.
Didn't realize there was that much feel good in this win. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean it was awesome. Like this is like the flip side of college football. Like obviously, like on the Alabama side, devastating loss. The players are probably feeling really upset, really embarrassed. Like going the highs of the Georgia game to the lows of losing at Vanderbilt is terrible. And Kalen DeBoer, I assume currently on Alabama Sports Talk Radio, is getting destroyed. Paul Feinbaum's show today is going to be must listen for everyone out there.
Not for David. He hates this October. It's too soon.
Exactly. The flip side, though, is Clark Lee and the team and the staff that he has built at Vanderbilt and the players that he's brought into Vanderbilt that bought into what he was selling get to celebrate this and be really like proud of this moment for the rest of their lives.
Juju, put it on the poll, please. Does the University of Miami have to do it in January, in October? Also, Jeremy, what is Vanderbilt's record against top 10 teams all time?
Against top 5 teams, Dan, they were 0-60. Headed into this game.
Okay.
Is that goalpost in the river worthy?
That was so awesome. That thing must have traveled. Did they track how many miles that thing traveled? Because that river is not that close to the stadium.
I saw some estimate that it was 2.5 miles from the stadium to the river where they dumped it in.
I saw some funny video of some guy like videoing himself. He's like, I don't even go here. And he's like just carrying it.
What's the point of that? What kind of celebration is that? This thing, this sort of H, upside down H, we're just going to throw into a body of water.
That's what everyone does now. That's like the new thing is tear down the goalpost, throw it in a body of water.
It had a police escort at one point.
David, if beating a top 5 team when you're 0-60 against top 5 teams in your history is not walk the goalpost to the river worthy, then what do you need to happen to have it make it something that's worthy?
I'm almost positive that nothing is goalpost in the river worthy. I'm trying to think of any possible victory that would but people, what they're looking for. Here's where I was. everybody's looking for an excuse to celebrate, and you just manifested it. Hey, guy, I don't even go here. I just want to be part of this thing that could lead to destruction or to something that's going to cause bachelorette parties
joy.
to get
Why would you
interrupted.
be against celebration and joy? Like, what's the lane you're trying to occupy today?
No, I've been in this lane my whole life.
Joyless?
No, it's not. Why is it that you have to destroy property after winning a title?
They should have been chanting, "Let's have perspective. Let's have perspective."
Nuance.
Nuance.
Make fun all you want.
This
but
was a fine victory.
what if you were in charge of dealing with the fact that there is destruction of property? What
David,
if you-
I saw a security guard videotaping this whole thing. Like, everyone was so excited to be there. It was a crazy moment. It's probably like, do we have the clip of Lane Kiffin watching during his press conference? Because I feel like what I just spat out in 4 minutes, he encapsulated in one very easy sentence.
You did sound like you were hyperventilating a little bit. You're very excited. Understandable. It's an excitable victory, even though David is against excitement. Let's play the Lane Kiffin, the video and the sound of him watching this.
How would you assess just sort of the health of your team right now?
How many timeouts does Alabama have? One left.
They had all three a few minutes ago.
They have one left, 118. All right.
He's rooting for
Sorry,
Alabama.
I mean, this is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing going on. Better watch. You're not going to see it probably ever again. What was the question?
They're just like, hey, what do you make of your team's effort? How many times? He's like, you can see him squinting, looking at a TV in the back. How many timeouts does Alabama have left? Guys, you got to look at this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You hear Lane Kiffin there? Once-in-a-lifetime thing, David. But it would have been better with Saban.
If everything were once in a lifetime that's called once in a lifetime, there'd be very few lifetimes.
What? Okay.
That's deep.
Can
you
we
know
just
what? Hold on a second. Give me just a second here. I'm going
What
to.
was that?
I'm just just.
Got a minor penalty, 2 minutes for ruining comedy.
I would have gone with high shticking. But let's also play although I don't know what character he's being. Let's play.
He's not being a character.
I don't know
He's just being
I don't know
himself.
what this is.
He's not shticking.
Nick Saban, the clip of Nick Saban on, I think it was the McAfee show, talking about playing at Vanderbilt, that Vanderbilt played on their video board on a loop after Vanderbilt upset Alabama on Saturday.
But the only place you play in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt. Because when you play at Vanderbilt, you have more fans there than they have. And that's no disrespect to them. It's just the truth. When we played in Nashville, we had more fans, Alabama fans, than what they had Vanderbilt fans.
They had only beaten Bama one other time in 1984. Vanderbilt had not beaten a top 10 team since 2007, and they'd never beaten a number one team. And this stat, I think, is the best of the stats that I can give you on Vanderbilt. All time, they have a winning percentage of 48%. That is worse than Ball State, Utah State, Duke, Rutgers, San Jose State, North Texas, East Carolina. They are a historically bad football program. They are the doormat of the SEC. To see them beat Alabama after Alabama had just beaten Georgia, and I just got done telling you, I think there are 5 teams that Mike Ryan would even concede in the SEC feel better than the University of Miami does.
Do they still? Because Tennessee doesn't feel so good either right now. They just lost.
Oh, also, I'm curious, were you doing a Jeremy pun there, a doormat? Because they're the doors, Commodores?
I was not doing a
okay.
Jeremy pun there, but the
missed opportunity.
No, an opportunity that I chose correctly to not do anything Jeremy pun related on that one. Let's get Mike Ryan's correspondent opinions on this. We are bringing him in. He was in California. Maybe he's still in California.
Still is.
It looks like there is a hotel room behind him. Your appraisal of what it is that happened Saturday as David tries to poo-poo that victory and is weirdly taking the lane of being someone who's saying, not that exciting, what's the big deal? It's only October. Your thoughts, Mike Ryan, as you saw exactly how it is. If your team is going to lose this season, it'll look something like that.
It'll look like it looked for 5 of the top 11 teams in the nation. I think what this weekend proved is that winning is really hard. And when you have the day in, day out grind of a difficult conference, it's tricky to pull off, as Tennessee and Alabama found out. It's an interesting thing what's happening with Miami and their victories, because people look at their schedule and say, Miami's got an easy schedule. And yeah, that's what game day typically does. They go to spots that are easy for opposing teams, I guess. That was the nation's #1 defense, and Miami's offense is absolutely incredible. It's arguably the best in the nation. The stats back that up. And you saw on Saturday the best of Cam Ward and some of the worst. And sometimes he'll put you in that position, but it's amazing that these terrible, and that pick six was atrocious, these terrible turnovers don't really mean anything to him. He's pretty resilient in that way.
I don't think that that's the Achilles heel of the University of Miami. He will have 3 touchdown, 2 interception games. I believe the Achilles heel of the University of Miami is their defense allows too many giant plays.
Yeah, they've certainly surrendered big chunk plays, and this was actually something that kind of popped a little bit during fall camp. They're giving something away in their tendencies defensively, because the last 2 weeks the opposing head coaches have really taken their lunch. It needs to be addressed. Entering this season, the secondary was a real concern, particularly corner. They've had injuries there. They haven't really found a solution. Hopefully some of the young guys can continue to progress, and maybe you move Mish Powell to nickel. But the big chunk plays are a huge issue, even though Ott was relatively contained outside of a controversial long touchdown. Yeah, they need to figure that out. The opposing running backs are seemingly pulling away, and their offense on the running game, Miami hasn't really been able, outside of Jordan Lyle against USF and A.J. Allen, I believe, against FAMU, they haven't really been able to pop off these huge runs when they get into the second level.
Are we talking about this if the game went as it was supposed to go, which is just Miami beating them soundly from start to finish?
That's not how it went.
But why are we talking because they were down, they played so badly, and they were forced into a position to come back?
Because it's an unusual comeback. That's
if this was a much less interesting game, would we be talking about this? Like, probably not as much, David. Isn't that obvious?
6:30 in the morning for Mike. 6:30, you got him up to talk about this game?
How's Cynthia doing, by the way, right next to you?
She's in that bed. She's in that bed right now. It's been a great trip. I will say that it was an unbelievable experience. And David, you could poo-poo it if you want. That, like I said, that is the nation's #1 defense, and that was an incredible atmosphere. And the hospitality has been nice here in Berkeley outside of the actual game. When the game got going, that kind of felt like a legitimate hostile crowd, them identifying where the opposing coaches' wives were and going at them, security being lax and really letting those folks do whatever they want to do. The broadcast, for whatever reason, completely ignored dozens of bottles being thrown at Miami football players after that game. It was a great game, a great finish, and if you want to just look at it and say, well, what happened here? Miami didn't cover a 10-point spread. That's not really what happened in that game. And if you watch that game, you'd realize that was as improbable a comeback victory as Miami has ever had, including that Duke victory where Cornelder helped out in the kickoff return. That was an unreal comeback, and Miami never wins that game. Only good teams find victory in that situation. And I think despite Miami having a difficult time against Virginia Tech, who now all of a sudden with that Vanderbilt result, they look a lot tougher on the year. They thoroughly handled Stanford. And Cal went to Auburn and didn't really sweat the Auburn Tigers. And Florida now looks even better. I think Miami's schedule is actually probably a little bit better, and they have the highest ranked strength of schedule outside of teams with one. So, like, they have the highest strength of schedule in the top 10 amongst the undefeated teams, for whatever that's worth.
For the audio audience, Mike Ryan is in a hotel room at 6:30 in the morning. He's swigging some sort of drink that could be Red Bull, it could be water. And I'm wondering, when you check into the hotel, do you choose stage left to be empty of the bed that I see in the background, or is that your normal position at your house, or did you think ahead knowing you were going to be on the air?
Excellent follow-up. Izzy, what did you have for Mike?
That's a critical thing.
Thank you, Dan.
That's on my spot. That's on my spot, usually.
See, they did it.
2 straight weeks, Mike, with very stressful instant replay reviews. Your thoughts on targeting, no targeting?
The targeting thing, when it happened live, I was like, he hit him too hard. He hit him too hard, and because it was a quarterback, people think that the rules changed. Just like the previous week, people think that the rules changed for whatever reason in the end zone, because I think it's a weird thing. The Virginia Tech game, you have, when you're a runner, if the ball just sneaks over the pylon, it's immediately a touchdown, and I think that really clogged people's view of the touchdown pass. But I didn't think it was targeting, but I'm biased. I will say that they looked at it pretty thoroughly and they slowed it down, and it didn't look like targeting. It just looked like he hit him very hard. And thankfully, Mendoza, who was really tough, who's a Miami kid, he came back in that game, but he was wearing that hit because he had wide open wide receivers in that final drive. I don't know if the TV broadcast picked up on that, but there were just bad throws there. Cal could have absolutely pushed that ball in that final drive, but I think because of the previous hit, Mendoza was a bit loopy.
What about the illegal man downfield on the Miami touchdown?
So those blockers were engaged, and that's what makes the RPO so difficult to defend. The RPO, essentially just a quarterback and one receiver, know that there might possibly be a pass here. So RPO, there's usually vagaries, and people let that one go because those linemen are engaged in a block. But if you want to do that, fine. Cam Ward got hit in the face on the very same play, so they're offsetting. If you want to back up Miami, it's still second down. They easily made their way for 91 yards. I think that it's probably a little bit more advantageous for Miami if they call that, because there's less time on the clock.
Mike, I need to stop you just because the guy with a bag on his head just whispered in my ear, "This is worse than anything I've ever said in Heat Homerdom." And Izzy has burst out laughing that you, at this point, if the University of Miami killed somebody on the field with a machete, you would say that guy had it coming to him.
I mean, if people don't know the rules when it comes to the illegal man downfield, I'm sorry.
But that was targeting, though, Mike. It was targeting. He hit him.
It was shoulder. It was shoulder to shoulder, and he's not a defenseless player. He's a running back. He just hit him hard.
He hit him.
They looked at it. They looked at it.
Yeah, they did look at it, and Brock Osweiler was screaming, "That's an automatic targeting call."
Well, this is why commentators frame these discussions. We talked about this last week. It's not. If it were, it would have been called as such. I've been in those stands for several away games where the exact same play happens and it's targeting. It wasn't
Mike,
targeting.
you were watching the replay and you were saying to yourself confidently, "Nope, hit him in the shoulder."
Yeah, just like I was saying the week before that. Nope, it wasn't a catch. I wasn't watching these things on TV, so I guess I don't have that. I saw in the group chat that Reese Davis was pushing back on Brock Osweiler. For those that were awake, can probably confirm that. Also, did we get down to whether or not there was a voter from Wyoming that had Miami 16? And I swear to God, he thinks Miami lost that game. He voted as if Miami
It was
lost
really
that
late,
game.
Mike. It was so late over here. I know you're in California, but that voter was definitely asleep by 2 a.m.
Yeah, I heard a bunch of people say after the game, that was targeting. And it's like, you kind of blew a 25-point lead. We're going to hang on to the targeting as if that were the difference. It's like the chief bailout of all bailouts there. Please call targeting because they hit us so hard as they were mounting this incredible comeback. They looked at it. It wasn't targeting. Let's
I like
move
how
on.
Loopy Fernando, when he got up, was still sharp enough to say, I clearly got hit in the head. You guys should take a look at that. And that's when they finally took a look at it.
Well, if he clearly got hit in the head, why was he out there the final drive?
Same
was
reason,
Josh Allen
same
out there
reason
the final
Josh
drive?
Allen was, yes, because it's an
It's
inexact
just like,
science.
Okay, the training staff sends a guy back out there because he got hit in his shoulder. He got hit hard. They review it. It's not targeting. Okay, fine. If you want to say it's targeting, then I guess Miami owes everything to the refs.
I like Loopy Fernando as a character. Loopy Fernando was trying to bring Cal back. This is the part that I'm grateful for, and this part's not up for dispute. Wherever it is that you want to dispute anything related to the University of Miami football team, they're wildly interesting again. Just period. It's not any diluters on that. Their offense is good enough that Cam Ward is somebody who deserves his Heisman credentials. The statistics don't lie. This is statistically the best start a University of Miami quarterback has ever had. And that's a long list of great quarterbacks that have done impressive statistical things. He is wildly confident, on occasion too confident, and he makes them unbelievably interesting.
They're 44 minutes interesting.
We did a little Missouri. I'm sorry, we did a little Vanderbilt, Alabama. But yes, we're a Miami show, and we are talking a lot about the University of Miami today because, again, they had a comeback the school hasn't had in a century, David. You can continue in this century, I should say. You can complain about it all you want, but it's a game we haven't seen in 25 years. I don't know. Were there more wildly interesting games in football yesterday, in professional football? Did you think there were a lot of things that were more interesting than the way the University of Miami won?
For me, there were.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying
What
to
are
speak
they?
about allocation.
What
Aren't
are
you
they?
in charge of allocating
We got
time?
a 4-hour show. We're going to be doing 3 more hours of show after this.
I mean, Lamar Jackson against the Bengals was pretty damn good.
It was good. I agree with you. That's as well as Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow can play. Give me Mike Ryan, since he mentioned the Cornelder, the Cornelder game against Duke. This is the last time the University of Miami felt like this on a Monday.
27-24, squib kick. Just fall down on it or whatever. No, they're going to try the lateral. Pass it to the other side of the field. This never works. Caught by Cornelder. Pitches it back to Jaquan Johnson at the Miami 30, delaying the inevitable. Looking for a block. Pitches it backwards. As many laterals now as BS pass interference penalties on that last drive. Walton now pitches it back to Johnson. Guess we're going to keep going with this. Toss it back. Here comes another pitch. Cornelder has it. Throws it back to the Plumbers' 911 goal line. Dallas Crawford looking for a block. Gets one. Definitely not a block in the back. He throws it across to the 30 to Cornelder. Big legal block. He's got it to the 40. Cornelder crossing El Palacio de los Jugos midfield. Cornelder speeding now to the 40. Speeding ticket, VicHoward.com. Helder now dashing down the Dandy Bear sideline. So what, your kid has ringworm. Dandy Bear. Helder inside the Gus Machado red zone. Cornelder, he's at the 10. He's at the 5. Lindy, Eric, Scotty, Mike, Miami, Seaquarium, touchdown! There are presently no flags on the field, and certainly no one will have a problem with how this game ended. Oh, wait, we don't speak English, so everyone hates us.
What is your problem, David? You still think it's the local hour, David? What do you want us to be talking about in the local hour?
Why did you ask if this is the local hour?
Let's send Mike Ryan out on a song about him. He's a Golden Cane. He's one of the biggest University of Miami boosters that there are nationally. Let's serenade him on the way out.
I helped to hire Mario Cristobal. I am the reason players get paid. I only wanted to see Joe Zagacki. Golden cane, golden cane, golden cane, golden cane, golden cane, golden cane. My name is Michael Ryan Ruiz. I'm a golden cane.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations on your 6-0 start. Back to work. Very seriously, back to work.
Back to work came in under. I had that over 2.5, and he didn't say it once.
Good seeing you, Mike.
Good seeing you. Go Canes. It's a
Bye,
bye week.
Cynthia.
I think we can all agree that the takeaway that everyone had off of professional football yesterday is how in the hell is Van Ginkel always in the end zone?
Bleeping Van Ginkel.
I, again, forgot that there was an early game. This happens to me with the first couple of London games every single year. I'm arriving in the third quarter of, Minnesota's up 17-7. I didn't catch any of this. Van Ginkel now has, I think I've still got this right, he's got more touchdowns than the combination of Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Garrett Wilson.
I mean, that guy was doing that when he was a Dolphin, which is a sign he is a great player. The Dolphins, I know this isn't local stuff, but the Dolphins had a Van Ginkel and a Van Noy who always make plays. Let them both go.
Brian Flores is the D coordinator for Van Ginkel with the Dolphins and now with Minnesota. That's the scheme that, I give Flores credit as much as Van Ginkel for, they put 22 guys at the line of scrimmage, and then half of them drop back, and it's just very confusing.
But how is one guy always in the right spot at every single play, and it's Van Ginkel?
Is Brian Flores the best defense with Belichick out of the league? Who is the best defensive mind going right now?
He's getting a lot of credit. Obviously, Minnesota. What are the undefeated teams in the league? It's Kansas City and Minnesota. Is there a third one? What is the third? Is there a third unbeaten team in the NFL? That league is kind of crazy in terms of parity. The Bengals are now 1-4. The Ravens are a very barely 3-2. You have, the Cowboys are barely at 500. And so because the Vikings are 5-0 and because none of us understand how the Vikings are 5-0 with Sam Darnold, even though all of us know, not a Super Bowl champion. I'm sorry, you can give Flores all the credit you want. You can give O'Connell all the credit you want. You can give Sam Darnold all the credit you want. There will be no circumstance under which Sam Darnold is winning the Super Bowl.
Dan, there was a point during yesterday's game where I had written off the Sam Darnold experience for the season. He had started to sort of to scramble a little bit, didn't really look good. There was a screenplay that he gave up on immediately and just threw into the ground where there was nobody around him. Looked like he was starting to see ghosts. And then the fourth quarter happened, and it just looked like, hey, he's 5-0 now. What can I say?
Andrew Van Ginkel is tied for third on the Vikings in touchdowns.
The Sam Darnold play you're talking about there he actually was a smart play where Sam Darnold saw that it was going to get blown up and just threw it into the floor on purpose.
But he saw it way too soon, Dan. You could make something happen there, but come on. He just
gave up on it very quickly. You're right. Also, can you guys tell me, because I missed the first half of that game, what happened with Sauce Gardner? That he was just incapable of dealing with Justin Jefferson. He was getting a lot of penalties, and I saw that people were being critical of Sauce Gardner, who I think of, if it's not Surtain, I think of Sauce Gardner as the best cornerback in the league.
He had a 6-play stretch where he had 2 bad penalties and a dropped easy interception. It was the worst stretch of this great cornerback's career. So I think that's what you're talking about. But there were a lot of calls. There were a few, if you look at the replays, Jefferson got a few calls that he shouldn't have. So it kind of balanced out.
It's a league that requires superstar treatment. So we've seen that. I don't know why we keep talking about that. We talk about the parity.
Can we talk about anything, David?
Treatment. I'd like to talk about the game. It's an unbelievable thing to watch Aaron Rodgers continue to be thought of as someone who can win in the NFL. And I think it's clear that he cannot.
The thing that happened yesterday that I'm not used to seeing from Aaron Rodgers is he lost the game. They had 3 interceptions, and he doesn't throw interceptions. He sort of reinvented the way the position is played in terms of not making the mistakes that cost you. And at the end of the game, he had a chance to win it, and they're doing a lot of 5-yard slants that Van Ginkel can jump on because they're doing so much intermediary stuff. And then when he throws it to Mike Williams, he throws it in a terrible place at the end of the game.
They said that was his 6th, I believe, career pick 6 that Aaron Rodgers has thrown, which you're thinking, I don't know if that's a lot or not. Peyton Manning had 27. So it's pretty, it seems like it's an ability he has to not throw pick 6s.
I think the only saving grace is that the rest of the AFC East yesterday looked so bad. The Bills game was some weird late game management to lose that one on a field goal. Josh Allen looked like he got hurt, but then he came back in, which was weird. And then, of course, the Patriots-Dolphins game. Ugh.
Look, as a Dolphins fan, I can judge that that's concussed. All right, Josh Allen was concussed there. Next game, if they let him play, if it happens again, that's when the fingers things happen. So.
No, but
as a Dolphins fan, I can spot this, and I'm telling you, he's concussed.
To David's point, Aaron Rodgers, a lot of his stuff that he does when he was in his prime, a lot more physicality, right? There's a lot more running out of the pocket, a lot more of these dimes in small windows. Now, I feel like he relies on a lot of that quarterback to receiver chemistry. Like, let me throw a back shoulder. It requires more than just putting it at the right spot. It requires the receiver to know that I'm throwing it back shoulder, push off just the right time, get back. And all that stuff is, yeah, obviously it's a quarterback and a receiver, but it's not the receiver throwing you open. It's not the quarterback throwing you open. It's the receiver doing a lot of the work there. So it feels like Aaron's success is really dependent on how good those receivers are at reading him.
He's winning the Oscar for you then, because what Aaron Rodgers is doing, if you watch that game, the 9:30 a.m. Eastern game, he is blaming receivers. He's shaking his head when the receivers are in the wrong place or they don't run the right route, or at the end of the game, oh, that pass, he's going like this with his arms, where I'm just saying he is trying to think in his mind, and athletes do this all the time. When they get older and they've been superstars, they don't acknowledge the fact that their skills have been limited. They refuse to. You have to rip the uniform off their back. Aaron Rodgers clearly is not Aaron Rodgers.
It's also great coaching from the Vikings to know his tendencies. Like that Van Ginkel pick, they explained how, like, that's a Aaron Rodgers tendency to get it out really quick into the flat. And so he turned around like right after the ball was snapped and was in the perfect spot for that pick six. So that's good coaching from the defense. And also, like, that last interception, like you said, Dan, that was just a poorly placed ball, and the corner was able to turn around and snag it. And Rodgers wanted a penalty flag because how could he? But it was a pretty badly placed. Like, if he put it over the wide receiver's like right shoulder, it probably would have been a touchdown.
He's also not evolving with the times. Like, I heard that he's very anti-motion. And everyone's offense these days, that's how you get all the advantages. So he just is kind of stuck in his ways. And like Jess said, he like has his same like check calls, like, oh, it's going to be quick slants. And that's why Van Ginkel read that.
One of the things, that's good analysis. That's why Van Ginkel read that shit. One of the things that is interesting about where it is that teams placed value in the offseason, Lazard and third receivers are being paid better than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, the Ravens got him 1 year, $9 million. And the Ravens, who had a record-breaking rushing offense a couple of years ago, have a better rushing offense this year with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. That entire game yesterday, the best game of the day, the Bengals and Ravens, Derrick Henry got held to no run was more than 7 yards until the one that won the game that went 50 yards. But now it would seem that Davante Adams is somebody that someone is going to trade for. And I don't know if you guys saw what Davante Adams did on his social media this weekend. He put up a picture of Edgar Allan Poe, which I was not expecting. That one caught me off guard, and
that he would know who that is, or that he would post it.
Just all of it was confusing to me. I wasn't expecting the tell of the poem is quote the Raven. That's a Raven reference, correct?
It could be Edgar Allan, Josh Allen.
Could just be a big fan of spooky season, Dan. I mean, you guys aren't aware of this, but it's October. It's fall. Everyone's getting a little spooky. We're reading spooky Edgar Allan Poe poems.
Edgar Martinez, Seattle. There's a lot of options here.
Okay, but I believe he was going for the Edgar Allan
Poe boy. Where do they make Poe boys?
Saints.
New Orleans.
You sound like idiots.
Ooh, today's actually the anniversary of Edgar Allan Poe's death, October 7th, 1849. Maybe that's what he was referencing, an early celebration.
Paying his respects.
Wow.
You
Respect
guys
the
didn't
troops,
find this as
the
weird
Patriots.
as I did, that he was just putting up a photo that I'm checking Davante Adams' social media, and there's just a photo of Edgar Allan Poe. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you recognize Edgar Allan Poe on sight?
Edgar Allan Poe, EAP, easily accessible place. What's an easy accessible place that he could be ended? I'm going deep with this.
Please the microphones in this show.
Are you okay?
Getting emotional?
Who hurt you?
Very emotional.
What are you doing? What is that? Is that a kerchief? What are you?
I carry a handkerchief
You're
around.
wiping around at your nose. What happened? Are you leaking from your nose? What's happening there?
I was laughing. Have you ever laughed so hard that all of a sudden you start crying? I'm laughing at you checking Adam's social media and seeing Edgar Allan Poe. That makes me laugh.
Oh, yeah, Dan totally follows him on Instagram.
Yeah, totally. I totally know exactly what Edgar Allan Poe looks like when you show me a black and white photo of Edgar Allan Poe. No one needed to explain any of that to me.
I thought that he was someone who wrote our Declaration of Independence when I first saw it. I wouldn't have recognized. There's no way that everyone recognized Edgar Allan Poe.
I mean, yes, there is. It's
You
Edgar
recognize
Yes, David. I wasn't in college 3 decades ago, respectfully.
That is not respectful.
It wasn't. I'm going to leave for a
That
minute.
is not in any way respectful. That is, you don't
I
have
was
to
in
leave.
college
You don't
3
get to
decades
penalize
ago.
yourself. That you don't get to penalize yourself. That's not how that one works. Like, I don't understand how it is that people are always calling their own penalties. Like,
Well,
it's
Willow's here, Dan, so she needs a little bit of time to play with the dog and then come on right back.
That's what it was. Is she wants a break.
Yeah, no, you got to sit there. The penalty is you got to sit there and watch David clean his runny nose. Got to stare right at it. Did you guys see yesterday that Andy Dalton, with 2 minutes left in the first half, was 7 for 8 for 15 yards? That's what the Carolina Panthers.
There's no way.
He's back.
7 for 8 for 15 yards was the stat line on Andy Dalton.
He had a good run.
As Stugotz was in Chicago with Billy and God Bless Football doing both that game, the Andy Dalton Red Rifle game, and Chicago Bears football. I don't know if that one was worse, though, than Dolphins-Patriots. Dolphins-Patriots was an excruciating misery to watch. The Dolphins special teams, dreadful. And Mike McDaniel, the last 3 weeks have aged him about a dozen years. This poor guy has been, like, I feel like he has been thrown through like a dry clean presser, like a tumble in the dry cleaner, where he has just been he's in tatters.
He didn't think this one through, this look through. He didn't say to himself, hey, what if we suck this year? What am I going to look like? Because if you're winning, you look like Coach Miami, you're the man. But if you're not winning, you just look like you walked out of, 11 at 5 in the morning and you put your glasses back on and realized, I'm on camera.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the 509 yards that Kirk Cousins had in the last game that we saw Kirk Cousins play represents more yards than the Patriots had thrown for in all 4 of the games before yesterday combined. I can't imagine what Patriot fans are feeling watching that football team after what they had for 20 years, where the Dolphins were favored in that football game. The Dolphins shouldn't be favored against anybody.
That was shocking. And the Patriots, they had a touchdown at the end of the game that didn't count because there was no toe drag. And that was a devastating
That's a
call to
weird
end the
rule.
game on.
That, like, if you're going backwards, you got to get the heel down. If you're going forward and the toes just drag, that's enough. It's an odd. What if you're going sideways?
I spent time last night thinking about, because there was someone who talked about the heel toe. It's not the first time it's come up this year. And there's a competition committee that goes through those rules. And I was trying to understand the provenance of that. What are they trying to guard against? Because that should be a legitimate touchdown at the end of that game. I actually turned it off because my pick of the day was the Patriots, and they scored, and that's it. The Patriots were going to cover. And then I looked back many minutes later, and it was disallowed, and I didn't know what happened. And I went back, and it was the heel-toe issue.
Well, the NFL is crazy to me. I spent that entire game obviously not paying attention to the football on the field, but thinking about just how long ago it was that the Dolphins scored 70 points against the Denver Broncos. And am I wrong? Was it 2 years ago or 1 year ago? It was last season, right? It was last season, and they were so much fun. They had built up all this energy in people to the point where last week, before that game against that horrible game last week, people were telling me on the streets, hey, I got this crazy parlay. Tyreek's going to go crazy tonight. And I'm like, do you know who's playing quarterback? Tyreek's not doing anything tonight. And then I'm flipping through the channels, and the Washington Commanders are doing crazy things, and it makes me not want to change the channel. And I'm like, man, the NFL, it's like that. Everything changes in the snap of a finger. And last year I was being told that being a fan of the Dolphins made me a loser because they didn't win a playoff game. And what? Like, at least I had a good season. This year has been absolute crap.
Have you ever been watching a game on a normal broadcast? So it's like not red zone. I am just sticking with this game, but you want the red zone treatment for the game. It's like, I just want this screen to go black for Patriots Dolphins, and when they get in the red zone, let it be up. Like put music on. You know how sometimes YouTube TV has like the
Moment
this is
of
just
zen.
moment of zen. Just give me that. And then when there's something important happening, show me the game.
I love when you can
don't-
skip the ad and get that extra moment of zen for like an extra 5 seconds. Man, those are nice.
I mean, the whole game lived between like the 40 and the 40, just in midfield, and it was just gross, and I didn't want to watch any of it.
What would you be doing during this period? Would you just be sitting there staring at the blank screen?
Just resting my eyes. It was funny. I was watching Red Zone at a buddy's house, and we made the decision. We're like, all right, big TV gets Dolphins, small TV gets Red Zone. Let's see how long we make it.
Now you really got to
like
focus in on the bee when it's like on top of the flower and try like that's if you really stare at that for a while, man, that is so relaxing.
It was about midway through the second quarter. We're like, all right, flipping it. Dolphins on the small TV, Red Zone on the big TV.
Sometimes there's just a view of like the sand and the beach, and there's like the ocean water crashing, and those are the best. The worst part is when you can't find your remote in time to skip that ad, and you have to watch those extra 5 seconds of ad, but you know there's some zen coming.
I could feel off of David, even though he didn't say anything, and I think he's still stewing in this particular stew, that David does not believe that people were walking up to you on the streets talking about their parlays.
Absolutely.
What streets?
This literally happened to me yesterday. Someone walked up to me and they're like, so, Dolphins are playing the Patriots today. I got a survivor pool. What do you think about this game? And I was like, I don't like giving advice on stuff. Like, I don't know. But definitely don't pick the Dolphins for your survivor league. That's a mistake.
People think because I work for this show, it's like, hey, dude, who should I start? This guy or this guy? It's
they
like,
don't think because of this show that anyone
Dan,
knows
literally
anything.
this happened to me
it's
yesterday.
people that don't listen.
They're making conversation.
It's people
not
that don't
because-
listen. They just think like, oh, sports job. Who should I start? It's like, dude, my team's 1-4.
The guy showed me the screen. Like he showed me he had the bet. I'm not lying to you.
You let a stranger, so you talked that long that they got out their phone and showed you their screen of their wager.
Well, I was leaving the medical marijuana dispensary, and everybody's super friendly when you walk out of those things. And this guy was just like, hey, bro, I noticed you in there, but I didn't want to talk to you. Hey, I got this crazy parlay with Tyreek Hill. And I was like, go for it, man.
I'm not even kidding. Like, this happened to me yesterday. Like, oh, you work for DraftKings, right? So let me tell you about all my bets today. This happened to me yesterday, David. This is a real thing. I am not an expert, and I hate giving advice. But I did say take the Commanders for your survivor pool. And guess what? They're one of 5 people left in their survivor pool.
So good. I think that's fantastic that you work for DraftKings and that you're giving betting advice. I like that we're put in that
literally
position.
said I wasn't.
I think
that.
that people think you do is what's making me smile. And I'm picturing everyone on the streets right now. I had the Patriots in my survivor pool, and it was my second survivor pool, having lost in week 2 of the first one.
Okay, Jessica, I don't want you talking behind your hand to Jeremy and both of you giggling, avoiding the audience while you talk amongst yourselves. Like, that is the rudest, what you guys just did there, where you think you're concealed because this makes it clear that no one can see what it is that you're saying because you got a hand in front of your lips. What did you two just say at David's expense, please?
It's that Lewis got in our ear and went, yo, this guy sucks.
Lewis.
We've got a penalty, 5 minutes, major asshole.
Go sit in the penalty box, Lewis. We don't need you doing a private show that distracts Jessica and Jeremy from the one that we're presently doing.
At least cover your mouth when you say that, Lewis.
The things that happened in football yesterday that were interesting, you've got a handful of them. You've got Bengals, obviously, and Ravens was a lot of fun. Quarterbacks playing at the top of the sport. Lamar Jackson fumbled the game away at the end, and the Bengals kicker missed a 53-yard field goal. When in the other interesting game, Houston and Bills, the kicker makes the 59-yard field goal, and we're now deciding these games by nothing from 59 yards out, and the difference between Atlanta being at the top of its division is that Koo will make 59-yard field goals at the end of games.
It was just a bunch of games where everyone was trying to give the game away. You mentioned Lamar giving it away. Joe Burrow with the weirdest interception. They have the ball. They can run the clock out, throws a quick slant, interception. The Ravens are back in the game all of a sudden. There were a lot of examples of teams just giving away games.
Well, you say there are a lot of examples, but this is what I would say about yesterday's play, because you had a couple of 100-yard plays. That doesn't happen very often. you had no reason whatsoever to watch Broncos Raiders.
Ugh.
No need to watch that. No need to watch Patriots Dolphins. There's a lot of slop being played everywhere. But Bills Texans, you know both of those teams to be good. Lewis, you haven't been in there long enough. That hasn't been 5 minutes. Get back in the seat. You haven't been in there long enough. Bills and Texans, you know that both of those teams are good. But Josh Allen rarely plays that poorly. Josh Allen was clearly concussed. Josh Allen got smelling salts, and then at the end of that game, all of the Bills organization felt like it was playing concussed, throwing from its own end zone, as if they were trying to come back from behind. The way that they were playing the end of that game made it feel like the Bills didn't know the score, that they thought that they were behind and throwing from their own end zone, because with a reckless quarterback, they did 3 straight dangerous things that will be the worst time management you see in that sport this entire year.
I read this stat from the story of that game, and it's so Josh Allen. The Bills are the only team in the last 45 years to be tied or leading in the final minute of a game inside their own 5-yard line and throw 3 straight passes. That's per ESPN research.
It was really weird because then the Texans got the ball back, did like a little dump pass into the middle of the field, and had one of their timeouts. So they called a timeout and set up a long kick, which they made. Which, like, if they hadn't been able to get that pass off, I don't know if the kicker makes it, because it would have been like a 60-yard plus field goal. So it was really weird clock management from the Bills. And like you said, like, they were deep in their own end zone. So I guess I understand trying to get some field position, because if you run it 3 times, the Texans still get the ball back with good field position, but at least maybe you make them use some timeouts. So it was really, really strange.
Crazy.
End
Dan,
of game
how do we
management.
allow that? How do we allow him back in the game? Because if that, now I know there's a history there, but if that happens to Tua, or even anybody who's just deemed to be slightly more fragile than, Caballo, Josh Allen over there, they're not coming back into this game. When he left the game and I saw the replay, I was like, that's a sure thing. He's done. But they give him some smelling salts and he answers the right questions and he comes back because he's 6 whatever he is and 200-something pounds, because that was so clear and obvious, it was embarrassing.
He claimed it was an ankle, like in the post-game sound. He's like, I went into the tent, I hurt my ankle. What are you guys talking about?
Smelling salts for the ankle. Who doesn't say that?
It's weird. It was weird, though, and I think that physically there is something at play with the fact that people bounce off of him, and he is 240 pounds, and he looks bigger than most of the guys.
The ground cannot bounce off. Like, his head bounced off the ground. That's where the concussion came in.
I thought he was out. I thought he was actually unconscious.
If you look at one of his hands, he did that reflex thing. It just wasn't as obvious because he was turned a different way.
I'm concerned about the NFL doing that with Tua in the position he's in. They had the whole settlement, and the whole purpose of the blue tent and the protocol is to stop the smelling salt situation, which was common in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and to make the exception the way they did for Josh Allen, I thought ruined all of the progress they've made in fighting concussions.
There was one with C.J. Stroud, too, where C.J. Stroud takes a hard hit. You see the replay. It didn't seem like he banged his head, but he gets they're about to do the next play, and you can hear the broadcast team being like, that was just a bad look. He should be checked out right now. And then the ref clearly gets a thing in his ear of, get him out. So, like, while they're at the line of scrimmage, they send him off the field. It was just funny. It's, hey, we think you're concussed. Hurry up and run off the field and get to the blue tent quickly. It's like he should probably be walking, taking his time. But it's like, no, we got to do the next play. You might be concussed. Jog off the field to the blue tent.
I don't know what the national storylines are today that everyone is talking about. Obviously, the Bengals falling to 1-4 in that particular game when Burrow played his best and still got outdone by Lamar Jackson being a little bit better and Derrick Henry at the end. But I do think at the top of the list, David, because I don't think there was that much interesting yesterday, the top of the list has to be Jaden Daniels. Like, the fact that the Washington Commanders have erased 25 years of inept, 25 years of our stadiums falling apart. We can't have a nickname for our team that's not racist. We have, sewage lines busting in the stadium. And now all of a sudden in 5 games, we've clearly fixed it because this is the first quarterback ever to open with 5 games where he throws for more than 1,000 yards and rushes for more than 250.
It's October.
Okay, I don't know what to do if all you're going to do is this.
It's not all I'm going to do, but Jaden Daniels has had a great start to his career. One of the best starts, I could argue, maybe the best starts of any quarterback that I can remember as a rookie. But to erase Daniel Snyder, does that mean Josh Harris has done it?
Josh Daniels.
I'm talking about, Josh Harris, the owner of the Commanders. He's done it. He's erased Daniel Snyder with 5 weeks. Is that our position?
Jaden Daniels.
I said Jaden. I didn't say Josh Daniels.
Yeah, this was just a mix-up of
said
Josh Harris, Jaden
Harris.
Daniels, Josh Daniels, Josh, I don't know.
It's October. That's what Dave's go-to move today is. He's going to just give the date again and again.
We should break down his full season, actually. David's right.
October baseball.
We haven't even spoken October yet. Did I really say Josh Daniels? Okay.
We have talked a lot of football, but there are games with stakes going on in the WNBA and in baseball. How much of a surprise is it or isn't it that the Liberty knocked out the Aces? I thought that the New York Liberty were supposed to, over the last couple of years, be a team that was supposed to be dominant and doing this, and this is the first time that they've done this to the Aces where they end their season.
I mean, I think it is, but it isn't. Like the Aces obviously have the best player of the season, Asia Wilson, on their team, and one of the best head coaches in Becky Hammond. But the team really hasn't looked right throughout the season. Like there's been stretches where Chelsea Gray was hurt and not really looking like herself when she came back, and then after the Olympic break, Jackie Young's been fighting an injury. But they have had some really spectacular games. New York is just they're also very, very good and have several other very good players on their team as well. Brianna Stewart obviously having a great game, and Jonquel Jones and Sabrina Ionescu having a good series. So it's surprising, yes, because the Aces won back-to-back championships, but I think the Liberty have been a favorite throughout most of the season, so it's not so surprising.
It's a revenge tour, Dan. The Liberty they were supposed to be that super team last year that, competed with the Aces, and the Aces took it, and that's back-to-back. And now the Liberty all season long have felt like that team. It's they just have it together a little bit more than the Aces. Not to get back to Chiefs talk, but there was times there was a little bit something off with the Aces, and you could just see it in this series. They took a game, but really this was New York's, the entire sort of season. This was New York's series to have, and Sabrina Ionescu, that was the one game that the Aces got where they stopped her. But she has been on fire in this series, and her and Brianna Stewart are probably going to win it all.
It felt very Bulls-Pistons to me, and I'm sorry to go back so long. It's hard to beat the team that you have to beat to advance, and then when you do, you're looking for excuses. No, I think it's just Liberty's time. While the Aces do have the best player, the best coach, I think that when you win that series the way they did, and that's what I was thinking about, there's always a team that's in front of you that you have to get past.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans maybe took the dominance for granted. Repeating a championship, very hard. A three-peat, it almost never happens. It hasn't happened in a really long time. So, yeah, it's definitely hard to maintain the same level of excellence throughout long seasons like they've been playing in. But at the end of the day, it's two really high-level basketball teams playing each other. Someone has to win. This time around, it was finally the Liberty. So now they get a chance to win a title in the championship.
I am super interested, David, in what it is that's happening in baseball, and I have thought that the Phillies-Mets series is the most interesting one of all of them for a number of different reasons. Those fan bases hate each other. Bryce Harper is an extraordinary postseason player. The Mets keep doing things late in games that is super unusual, but the one way that you will get me to find another series more interesting than that one is start throwing things at the players in the Padres-Dodgers series and have Fernando Tatis embrace the role of, yeah, I'm a steroid guy, but also I don't mind being a villain so much. When baseball has very few people who are willing to be the villain. You can see him in the outfield yesterday going super sensual with the pelvic thrusts. They won 10-2. He's hitting home runs. He is really taunting the Dodger fan base, it seems, with his penis. At the very least, he's doing it with his hips. I don't know if he's doing it aggressively with his groin, but it does seem like he is enjoying a certain pulsation that he is doing below the waist at the people in right field.
He worked in a few Conor McGregor strut thing. He was going for something there. Was this? Yeah, that was interesting, man. Profar, he seemed like he was getting emotional with it, David, because it was weird because the broadcast kind of came back and it was this is happening right now. You didn't really get to see. It was just you were just kind of hearing from the broadcast.
I thought they did a terrible job because they kept showing like Joe Musgrove. I wanted to see what was going on the field, and this is when I wished I'd been at the game. And what I was frustrated about, and what we found out later, Profar did a good thing. He was bringing a ball to the man in the Dodger uniform jersey, first row, who he robbed Betts' home run from.
Let's give more context on that, because he robs the home run, but he did the thing where people weren't sure. Did he catch it? Was it a home run? And he waited it felt like a minute, if like 15 seconds to show the ball. So that's why he got the fans a little angry at him.
It's one of the rules when you make a defensive catch like that is you pimp it. You don't have to say that you have the ball very quickly. You get to live in that moment. And if you see there's a guy in a Dodgers jersey and he looks at him and says, "Oh, you got it.
Another cool reaction.
You got it." So a few innings later, Profar brings him a ball, which we encourage, and charge them $7.95. But we encourage them to bring the ball to the fan. But then he threw it back, but not at Profar. So then what happened? Another fan threw a ball, and this time at Profar, and that's when all hell broke loose.
I don't feel like it was all hell. I feel like it was just 11 minutes
half
of a
hell.
Corner of hell. Not even half hell. Look,
wasn't malice at the palace.
I feel like hell's a lot worse than that. It's not all hell did not break loose. Just a tiny fragment. Of
hell usually happens at an Oakland A's game.
Let's examine for a moment how much joy Profar got from doing that in Dodger Stadium. You catch the home run ball, and Mookie Betts is running around the bases. He thinks he's hit a home run. He's joyously going around the bases as Dodger fans sort of want to celebrate, but Profar is dancing and laughing in left field, hopping up and down because he's the only one who knows he's got the ball in his glove.
Betts is past second before he realizes the ball has been caught.
There is nothing worse than the U-turn of going past second and going right to the dugout. That to me is the biggest nightmare for an offensive player.
It's such a cool view and made me start thinking of like Stugotz's old ways to save baseball. And if you just have a bunch of fans there fighting, because that's such a low fence over there. So if you have a low fence and the fans fighting for the ball and he catches it, the player catches it, it makes it even cooler.
I got to be honest, Dodger fans, you failed there. Like, you got to whack that glove. Like, you really do have to try, and it's in your seat. You have to try and help your team more actively there. Make a play.
Just go for the ball so you interrupt him at least.
So the anti-Bartman is what you're saying.
You need to do something so dramatic that your life will be ruined forever when people find out who you are.
She gets it.
Except when a ball is coming at you like that, you can't think that way. That's like saying that Steve Bartman was getting in the way of a Lou knowingly. It's absurd.
Okay, but Bartman was doing it not knowing game situation. Those fans in left field need to know that is game situation. They need to help their guy out there. They need to be aggressively trying to catch the ball and get in the way there, because that's something that they could have made a home run by simply being more aggressive. You disagree with this?
You are allowed to interfere with the fielder who is out of play. That is for sure a rule. And I'm wondering whether we should tell our fans, when you're sitting in the first three rows of the outfield, you have to go almost full Jeffrey Mayer.
No, what you do in that spot, because if you know what you do, when an outfielder is coming up to the wall to try to rob a home run, he's hoping that his other outfielders are telling him, wall, wall, wall. You need to be yelling wall a lot sooner if you're the fans there.
I'm going to hand out gloves to everybody. That's what we're going to do next time, because if the guy had a glove, he probably would have caught that ball.
Well, to me, this is like going to your favorite artist's concert, right? And you're sitting close enough where the artist pulls you on stage and you have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to perform with your favorite artist, your favorite song, and you forget the words. Because this is a playoff game in LA. You finally have a chance to turn what could be an out, a spectacular out, into a home run, and you missed your chance. And all you could do is stand there and point at the player who caught it. Oh, you got it.
David actually just had a great idea. You give everyone in the front row gloves. If
That's
you just
a great
hand them
idea.
out, like you know, the odds are maybe a
Please
ball.
interfere.
$7.95. Don't hand them out. $7.95, but everybody gets
Just
one.
go for the catch. It's not interference
plastic.
if you're just going for the catch. I'm innocently going for the catch. I'm not going to, you know, Dan said whack the glove. I think that's a little aggressive.
Fair
With
game,
your
though.
glove.
It's fair.
With your
But as long
glove.
as you're just making an effort for the ball, it's all fair game.
I like Chris's idea though of just making the outfielder just super confused. Like,
Wall.
it's like a fake shot clock chant at a basketball game. Oh, yeah. You just got to have them a little off guard.
Surely you guys have been in arguments with people where it is that things get heated, and then on the drive home, you're like, I should have said this. I should have said that.
I ain't cheating.
This would have been a good comeback. Tell me those fans in left field yesterday didn't go home saying to themselves,
Oh, no, they're a failure.
I need to have been more active there about not allowing the Padres to do that to me in my home
It's rare
stadium."
where you can help your team. And they failed. I'm with you. Actually, I'm coming around on Dan's side here.
Everybody leaves a situation saying, oh, man, I should have said that. That's a Costanza-ism from Seinfeld where you think about something and then you want to go back and do it.
Yeah, it's a jerk store situation, but one of those fans got so mad he threw a ball back onto the field, and that was taking it too far.
So that was a fan who did it who was not part of that home run. The one who threw it at Profar was someone who was not part of helping cause it to be a home run or an out. The man in the jersey, he just took the ball from Profar and threw it away from Profar.
Which is, I respect that move. There's no foul play there. If he gives you a ball and you don't want it, get that out of here.
Are the Cubs the only fan base that does that? If you hit a home run into the bleachers, they throw it back? Right. I thought that
It's a thing.
I thought that was a thing.
It is definitely a thing. You just can't throw it at the player.
Right.
I
That's
once
when it's
threw
a
a
bad
ball
thing.
back that was I was sitting in the outfield with a group of friends, and everyone started doubting me mid-game whether I could throw a ball from where we were sitting to the infield dirt. And I was like,
Never
folks,
doubt
I
Chris.
played high school baseball. I know I can do this. And it got so heated with the debate, I asked the bullpen people, I was like, just bugging the play, let me get a ball. And they gave me the ball. Once I got that thing in my hand, I'm like, I'm throwing this. And in the middle of one of the innings, I waited till all the players walked away. I just told all my friends, I'm like, you guys are all about to eat crow here. And they ate crow. I landed it right where the shortstop stands.
Did you get ejected?
No.
Did anyone see you do it?
No. I'm just throwing back a home run. It's the same thing as throwing back a home
Is this
run
at
ball.
a Marlins game?
Yes.
Oh,
I
there's
waited.
just no one there. That's why.
Yeah, there was
Well,
no
usually
one.
we have a 1-to-1 security to fan ratio.
This was probably 7 or 8 years ago. So
That's dangerous and dumb.
I waited until the inning was over, Dan, and they were
What about
clearing
the grounds
field.
crew?
Nah, it wasn't
Dan,
one
you
of those
want
innings.
fans to whack a player in the arm
while
during a
going
game.
while going for the ball because
Gently.
look, that player Profar was in their space. They weren't Profar's space. That's out of the field of play. The Padres, this has never happened before in a postseason game. The Padres hit 6 home runs on the road. That's the first time that's happened. So it doesn't actually matter this one play because the Padres ended up winning the game 10-2.
Wasted some home runs, if you ask me. In a long series, like if I'm up 7-1 in a game, they hit 3 home runs after that. Like, you're only going to hit so many home runs in a series. You are wasting home runs.
I can barely get Cody to respond to texts. Barely in the world of business. Last night, late at night. Any such thing as scoring too much?
I was just like, it's 10-1. It's like these guys are going to regress to the mean. If you go 4 for 4 with 3 home runs, that means you're due to go 0 for 4 the next game.
But you won't respond when we're trying to coordinate like planning the show. But you're awake and you're texting.
I mean,
about
I was
scoring
infuriated. I was just like, what's happening right now? Why are they still trying to hit home runs? They're up 9-1. Although they did send a statement because after all the controversy, the Padres hit like 3 home runs right to that left field again. And there was a little like meaning behind that. Like, yeah, you want to throw stuff at us? We'll keep hitting balls at you.
How good a feeling do you imagine it is? Mookie Betts is rounding the bases. They put up the graphics. Betts' first home run of the postseason. The graphics are up, and Profar's hopping up and down, and he's the only one who knows he's got the baseball in his glove, and he's not showing the baseball to anyone. So for 5 to 10 seconds, he's enjoying being the only one in the stadium except for that little cluster of people who can't find a baseball in left field. He's the only one in the stadium who knows it's not an actual home run.
Do you think, David, that if Mookie Betts started sprinting and he's playing games out there not showing the ball yet, if you touch home plate before he shows the ball, it's a run?
No, it's still
It should be. There needs to be a time limit. You can't just hold the ball in your glove for an hour.
Showmanship.
It was 5 seconds.
Dude, what do you mean?
Maybe.
It's a long
Betts
5
was
seconds.
almost to third base. Betts was almost to third.
He was running fast.
Show me the ball clock, like 5 seconds.
There's got to be a clock.
Why?
Because it's just not fair. What can he just gonna? Like, what if it's like 2 at bats later? He's just like, by the way, I have the ball, guys. Like there's a line.
But before the next guy comes up is where the line.
Or before Betts gets home.
Yeah. So you think, okay, so just to be clear, you think that Profar might be right now in left field
That'd be hilarious.
and bringing out the ball this
in
morning.
bed the next morning. It's like,
Game's not over. I still got the ball.
I mean, there's been at-bats. There's been all sorts of stuff.
Where's
in
the
game.
line, David? Because at some point this becomes a controversy.
Not in 5 seconds.
It's a long 5 seconds. Just ask my
I'd
wife.
like to count. Can we do like a count to find actual elapsed time?
It was. I mean, if it's taking Betts past second base, let's go ahead and do this
All right, hit
right
it,
now.
guys.
Are you ready? Let's go. Let's do it right now before it is that we realize when it is that he's got the ball. So he's got the ball right.
Ready? And
now.
One,
two,
3, 4, 5.
And you're out.
6,
Mississippi.
7. Does he know yet? It still says home run.
He's running to the dugout.
I don't know when he found out. It's at least
Somewhere
between
around
7 or
5.
8.
No, we just
Definitely
counted.
after 5.
After 5.
It's got to be a good feeling though to be the only one in the ballpark who knows that he's got the out in his hand and it's got to be a crushing feeling. You know how hard it is to hit home runs for Mookie Betts to be delighted rounding the base at first, rounding the base at second, and then like, oh my God, my heart is broken.
I don't know. It's only October.
That's right. That's
Well,
the
in
answer
baseball,
to
October's
everything.
So only October means different things for different things.
I don't
But by
know.
the way, Mookie Betts is terrible in the postseason. So for him, he thought he was getting out of a slump. He thought that this was an opportunity to get a hit, and the Dodgers thought that they could come back from the first inning home run and maybe win the first 2 games of the series.
Kyle Higashioka has as many postseason home runs now as Mookie Betts.
Career?
4 career postseason home runs. 4 career postseason home runs for Mookie Betts. It's pretty unbelievable.
That's suboptimal.
It's crazy.
And this isn't even the most interesting series because, all right, guys, I'm going to say something. I think I'm rooting for the Mets.
Oh, no.
Dude, Vientos last night.
Say that again.
Vientos
last night. Peter.
You've made it like a Mentos. It's vientos. It's like a harsh wind, like what's coming this way off of the west coast of Florida.
The home run maker. and then Pete Alonso, like they're getting me out of my seat. Baseball has not gotten me out of my seat of like, holy crap.
It takes a lot.
And they did it twice this weekend. I mean, I'm gonna say it. I'm rooting for the Mets.
So
How
you're
hard is that
You're
for
watching
you?
the Mets and you're literally standing up out of your couch.
When Pete Alonso hit that home run, it brought me out of my and Vientos.
Show us what it looked like.
All right, so I'm watching, and I'm like, oh, there's no way Pete Alonso's.
You're sitting upright like there on your couch, not leaning back?
The hit hasn't happened yet, guys. Let me play this out, and then it's someone give me the crack of the bat. Whoa, no way, no way. Holy sh! This team just keeps doing this because they did it even before the.
Who are
Pete
you talking to there?
I don't know. I don't remember actually. Probably just myself. I just broke a pen.
Vientos, the pitch he hit in the 9th inning, David, a 3-2 pitch that was way up in the zone. I didn't think that was something that he could yank out of the ballpark the way that he did.
He's a major league hitter. It's happening a lot
Vientos,
in the postseason.
a major league hitter.
Am I saying it? Vientos.
Vientos, yes. It's in Spanish. It's a harsh wind.
When you're the number 2 hole hitter, you are known as these days. That's the best hitter. That's where you put him in your lineup in the 2 hole. In general, that's what most teams are doing. And what's making this playoff so interesting, why people are watching, is that people are rooting for the Mets who wouldn't otherwise root for the Mets, and that is a major thing that Cody just said. Because to have a Marlins fan or anybody rooting for a team that you root to hate, that's when ratings come.
Every year in baseball, like they're that team right now. They're the team that feel, even though they all are so, they're also like the highest paid team, but they feel like an underdog because of how they played all season, and they just every 8th, 9th inning, they're the cardiac Mets.
Well, it's crazy because the Mets have won 4 games since Monday. I'm emotional about it. I
UCF
apologize.
That's $5.
Yeah, I'll Venmo. 4 games since Monday, all on the road. In 3 of those games, they scored a combined 18 runs in the 8th inning or later. And when it comes to the drama with them, entering this year, no team had ever played 3 straight postseason games in which the team that led entering the 8th lost. And the Mets have now done that in 4 straight games.
Have you noticed that they're all back to being 3.5-hour games? That's what I was
What's going on
thinking
with
about.
that?
So what happens in the postseason is the breaks are an extra 15 seconds each. So they do an extra commercial. So you're adding 4 minutes before you've even
In
started.
more ways than one, you're adding. Because it's an ad. Keep going.
Oh.
That's
ADD.
It's a good joke.
Hit it, Dan.
Sometimes it's just so good that
hit
it just...
what? When he makes a joke that makes everyone stare at him, stops the show in its
Just
tracks.
because you guys
What
didn't
am-
get
what-
it,
what- no,
somebody's cackling in their car right now.
What am I hitting, Izzy, when the show just stops, and then in an audio medium, what you get is just silence and everyone's staring at each other. What am I hitting?
It's only stopping for the people in this room. For
Give him the
everyone else-
laugh, because the look that David gave just blankly back into this room like, what the hell does he mean by that? And then he hit him with the explanation. I loved it.
You guys got to keep up.
PJ Fleck is the awkward transition as I take us out of baseball back to college football, because on Monday we cannot get enough of college football. Why was he yelling at a referee? What is the backstory on what it is that was happening here?
I actually don't even remember what he was yelling about at this particular point, because as I rewatched it this morning, I'm like, what is he saying? Can anyone tell me what he's saying in this video to the referee? Because he is furiously mouthing words at the referee, and it is very funny to try to picture what he's trying to go for here.
So let's see. Oh, gee. He looks, I could describe it to the audio audience. He looks like a dog, like a Shih Tzu about to eat something. Like, like when they're
That's
calm.
exactly what
and
he
then all of
looks
a sudden
like.
it's like, I'm going to tear up this glove. It's just...
It sort of looks like he's just going like,
And because you can only see like the shoulders up, it also looks like he just came back from like the shooting of Grease 3, because he's got like a weird Letterman look with a yellow tie. It's very strange.
It is an unusual amount of anger, I would say, and it escalates very quickly from he is already a bit rabid and rage-filled, but then he can find a whole nother gear of rage where I didn't know that he had that in him, and then he just storms off. So whatever he says is the final dismount on this discussion.
I think this was the last Minnesota touchdown that put them ahead, because initially they ruled it short and then they reviewed it and called it a touchdown.
So this is happy?
Well, I think this was mad that they didn't
That's such a
rule
great call you
a
made right there.
touchdown. Honestly, there was so much happening on Saturday. This happened like simultaneously with this crazy Michigan-Washington national championship rematch game going on at the same time. Anyways, so then Minnesota goes ahead on this touchdown. They go for it on fourth down, get the touchdown, go up by 7. USC gets the ball back. USC has apparently not won a game in the Eastern or Central time zone since 2012. I read that stat this weekend, and I find it just impossible to fathom. But now they're in the Big Ten, so they're going to be playing a lot in the East and Central time zones. So they get the ball back. Miller Moss tries to throw it in the end zone, throws a ridiculous interception to end the game, and Lincoln Riley loses to Minnesota. PJ Fleck gets a huge win. This is the 11th ranked team in the country losing at your home stadium, and Minnesota's unranked. And this was the happy moment. This was the happy moment for Minnesota.
Now
fans.
I'm imagining him saying, like, good call. Good game for just thanks for your work today. Really appreciate you.
I think he walks away there realizing he's been ineffective. You can't get that angry and be effective, can you?
Oh, I disagree. I think he sees that he has made his point, and he thinks he is walking away a winner in that argument, that the referee has no rebuttal for
Ref's
what it
face.
is that he just did to him.
I think the ref just walked away saying you're an idiot.
Can we get a still shot of the ref's face afterwards? Like, holy shit.
I don't know. The ref looks pretty kind of scared for a half a second there, like backing away because he's like, "Oh, are you gonna bite my face?"
I think the outfit and the bald head gives him something of a like professorial look, and so when he comes out with this furor right away, it's just like, "Whoa, this does not look like a professional."
I was gonna say that, Izzy. So this is what he wears on game days: the vest over the collared shirt with the tie, and usually matching pants. So this was an all maroon outfit with the little tie and the collar peeking out. It's very preppy from PJ Fleck, and he is a smaller guy. I don't know if he actually crowd surfed at the end, but there was a moment after his post game interview where the fans are rushing the field, and I was like, please someone lift him up. Please someone lift him up. David, I know this. I'm not trying to offend, but there's a moment where you see a short person surrounded by a crowd, and you're like, I just need this person to crowd surf right now.
She really went to you on short people
really
expertise there is what
it
she
feels
did.
like something that, like, after a World Series win, like, you should be crowd surfing, David.
Have you crowd surfed is the obvious question.
Everybody's
here.
looking down.
So
Where's
I can have all
David?
sorts
Let's
of
get him on our
strange
shoulders.
hands on my body. No, I have not crowd surfed.
You guys have this right, though. This is absolutely how it is that a dog goes from not barking to barking ferociously. This is not how human beings interact with people. It's how a dog is just looking at you and then scares you by barking. Also, Lincoln Riley. Ooh, ooh, woof.
Die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. There's a hurricane in my earthquake, and we're all wondering why. Let's turn on the news and find out how we're gonna die.
It hurts me to talk about this stuff. I know that people do not want to hear about it. I don't like, David, that my life, I'm now stuck in the algorithm of I get a whole lot of weather stuff on YouTube tracking Milton. Milton is gathering strength. And so I've seen over the last 5 days how forecasters aren't quite prepared for the new normal. They started at 90-mile-an-hour winds, and now we're quickly going to 140-mile-an-hour winds because of how hot the Gulf of Mexico is. It's currently at 86 degrees in October. Last year it was at 78 degrees. Since 2010, according to an analysis by the Washington Post, the Gulf of Mexico has experienced twice the global average of sea level rise. It's irreversible. And over the same period, the population of Tampa Bay has grown twice as much as the national average. So the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning is right now in the middle of a $3.5 billion waterfront project. And this, you laugh, but we have had $27 billion disasters this year. There have been 40,000 insurance claims in Florida alone this year. I think as bad as the wind that's coming this week with Milton, the surge is the storm surge isn't going to have a precedent. And what you're going to have is areas that have already been ravaged by Helene are now going to have all sorts of debris flying on top of debris in waters that are going to engulf Tampa in something that looks to be pretty horrific and has me really scared. Evidently, South Florida is going to be spared this time, but we're all playing like the opposite of this natural disaster lotto with when's one of these hurricanes going to hit in the place that you are.
Do people think that about earthquakes? That it's just a matter of a moment in L.A. and you're going to be sucked into a crack?
So you're saying the Tampa Bay Lightning should change their team name? That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
I mean, and the Hurricanes as well. The University of Miami Hurricanes as well. I'm really concerned about what's coming this way this week. And I don't just mean this way South Florida, because I don't think South Florida is going to be unscathed. The amount of storm surge that is headed this way is going to make life very difficult for people.
When people buy riverfront, waterfront property, especially in Florida, we're always told you're going to pay a premium, but know that in terms of generational wealth, it's going to end up being at some point underwater. None of this should be a surprise to you.
Oh, but insurance companies fleeing the state at the rate that they are make it so that this next disaster feels like the one that's going to make Florida uninsurable.
I don't know if you remember, but last week, I believe I was on the show. It was right before the last hurricane, and I was heading to Sarasota. The day of that hurricane was supposed to hit on a Thursday, and fortunately got a text from somebody who lives out there, shout out Amber Wilson, who said that, you're not even going to be able to get on Siesta Key. They're going to be keeping people off of it. And then we started doing the research and realized that the storm surge, because his condo we'd be staying at was right on the beach, would have flooded your car. Like that would have been at least up to, the seats in the interior. And my partner has a house in Sarasota, and he's now having to do this again, like go through all the hurricane preparation again. And it's just been a couple of weeks, and it just makes you question everything. You don't know what's going to happen. And his neighbor was telling us a story the last time we were there of just her sister just getting caught up in one of those, what do they call, the flash floods, and dying instantaneously because she was coming home to feed her dog because there was a storm on the way.
What are you laughing about? How can that make you
you.
silent laugh?
I'm going to laugh out loud and tell you exactly what was in my head, which is that we spent time in 04-05, if you're old enough to remember, here in South Florida, shutters up, then shutters down, then shutters up. We had 4 or 5 hurricanes in a row. This is 20 years ago. And yes, people were talking climate change at the time. And yes, the Gulf of Mexico is warmer. But there are years when there are back-to-back hurricanes. It's happened here before.
But not like this, where they come in like almost without warning, and you're just forming right on top of you in South Florida on any given day. Not this one in particular, but the weather experiences have just been way more severe and without warning. And so when you do get a hurricane situation like this on the way, you're probably thinking to yourself, this might actually be worse than I think historically a Category 3 has been in the past.
You have a choice. You have time to evacuate. Totally different than California, where an earthquake just happens. Hurricanes don't just start on top of you. You absolutely have time to not go to Sarasota or to get out of Miami.
This has gotten to Category 4 now very quickly. They don't know whether it's going to be diluted before it makes some landfall, but the speed with which these things are increasing, I believe, has forecasters only knowing a little bit, because what I'm telling you is that because of the nature of my fear and what I've gotten caught in the algorithms, I'm watching the weather a lot more than I'd like to be. And I have watched over the last 4 days people in St. Petersburg and Tampa who have some expertise in weather not know how fast this thing was going to get to where it is that it's gotten. They knew it was coming. There has been warning. You have to be paying attention to these things. There has been warnings, and you have 4 and 5 days of warning. But what is coming now to Tampa in terms of storm surge? It's not, the winds are bad enough. 140 mile an hour winds are crazy. Like, that part is scary enough if you're in your house and you feel all the windows rattling and the doors rattling and water coming into the house because of the flooding. But the storm surge that's coming after that, because it's just the ocean coming to grab land, is something that is like really horrifying. And it's not something that I've experienced before, having lived in South Florida the first 50 years of my life. You say 20 years ago, I've never had this level of fear for what comes this way, because I can tell the forecasters don't know what they're talking about. They're underestimating everything. Just read about the Doomsday Glacier and the way that it's melting in the Arctic and some of this stuff, I know people want to deny climate change because you want to make this something that is just totally random, but the stuff being irreversible is the problem with all this. We don't have a solution.
Confused by David here, where if you get enough warning, then it's okay that your house is destroyed. Like, I don't really understand why you're not making this as serious a deal as earthquakes, which again also destroy things, but without warning.
I had to live in a hotel for a month in 04-05. So yes, without power, and it caused me to get a generator, after which there was no loss of power for the next 15 years. No, I do take this seriously, so I think that you're mistaking my reaction. What I'm trying to give you is a frame of reference, which is you have warning here. I do not find it excusable for people not to evacuate. I don't find it excusable for people to die in hurricanes, whereas in earthquakes, it just happens.
Carolina's got warning, and they seem pretty devastated after Helene.
They got way more rain than was anticipated, and then mudslides with all the mountains. It's brutal.
Totally different. That was something that was not actually forecast. We in Florida, I'm sitting in Miami at the Elser on the 36th floor, and everybody's calling saying, are you leaving? You're not staying. Are you going to keep doing shows? And I'm choosing to stay and do it. So isn't it my fault if something happens to me?
The problem is that so many people don't have the resources to evacuate or be able to go anywhere or pay for hotels or whatever it is that is needed to be done.
Or they have to go to work. There
Right.
was a story of people that weren't able to leave their workplace, and 6 people died because their bosses told them they couldn't leave. Like, this is not like this. It's devastating.
That's
David.
the exact issue. Is there's so many people who are still being forced to stay where they are because we in Florida have long treated hurricanes as like a nuisance or an inconvenience almost, rather than the weather emergency that it is. We wait, are we going to close schools? Are we going to shut down workplaces? Who knows what's it going to be? And the issue that all of us are finding when you talk about the forecasting is something like this one that was originally, it's going to be a 1 or a 2. And so most people don't make the plans to evacuate. And then because of the heat in the Gulf, now all of a sudden it's a level 4 right now. And people are needing to make the proper accommodations and leave, some of which don't have the resources, some of whose bosses are not giving them the opportunity to go.
Do we close with a warning or just a watch or not at all?
I would also like to know what our plan is for this week. We can talk about that.
There was a time when all plans were made based off just what Flanagan's is doing. If Flanagan's is open, we're open. That's great. If Flanagan's closes, we're closed.
I'm pretty sure that David just said, I don't think I heard this wrong, that if someone dies in a hurricane, it's not excusable. I believe that that's what he just...
That is unbelievable. Look, when I was what, 15 years old during Hurricane Andrew, which ended up being a Category 5 that hit South Florida. I was just north of the 5 area, so what hit my house is probably a 3 or a 4. But with this warning that you tell us about, David, I knew maybe a day, 2 days ahead of time that this would be the most harrowing experience of my life because my parents weren't going anywhere. They're like, this is our house. We bought this house. We're not moving. And we stood there, and I was absolute lights out, terrified for hours, thinking we were going to die, like just waiting for the top of the roof to fly off and us hanging in a bathroom, like holding. That stood with me. It still does. It still does to this day. So that warning that was coming made it worse. Not saying that I didn't want the warning, but it actually made it worse because we're watching the TV, watching impending doom until you can't anymore because the lights are out. And then you try with the radio and you may be fine. And it's like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. You have no idea. Literally, other people in my house fell asleep. I could not fall asleep. I was just literally thinking we were all going to die.
I'm very sorry that happened to you. That sounds
no, but we got warnings, so it was okay.
You can mock the warning all you want. The warnings are there for a reason. Why do you think they're telling people
to put marker? No, it's not the warning I'm mocking, it's you.
No, I hear exactly what you're doing, Izzy. Why are they telling people to put markers so they can be identified? Have you been reading about the government saying that? Put your name and your birth date so you can be identified.
And that's not scary to you.
If that is it seems what to me?
Scary.
It seems very clear what you're supposed to do with that. You are being told to evacuate, and you choose not to. Those are the people I don't feel for. Do I feel for you and Hurricane Andrew? Obviously.
But, David, did you not hear what they just said? You're being told to evacuate, and
my family couldn't go anywhere.
Some people, because of their means, because they have to make life and death choices that work is making them, there are so many people. Something that's happening very clearly in this country right now is that as people talk about, well, the economy's great. The economy is great for the richest among us, and it creates a division that makes the poorest among us not be able to afford basic necessities. And if you can't afford basic necessities and you're being told to evacuate, but you have to make choices between life and death immediately, or I don't have the means right now to get away, I would say that you're coming from a position of privilege when it is that you say...
It's so convenient, Dan, to blame my view on privilege or color. There are shelters. There is not one person who cannot evacuate because they don't have the means. It's just not accurate. Now, bosses, Jessica, I would like to say that if you work for someone who makes you come to work when you don't want to come to work, you should have the right to not come to work.
But that doesn't happen, like, ever.
So
and they'll lose their jobs, and potentially jobs that are, saving them from whatever. Like, I can't believe that we're in a position where we're, like, blaming people who are being prevented from leaving for whatever reason for the suffering that they might go through. Like, I can't believe that.
I'm happy to try to clarify it one final time for you, which is when you live in a place where I'm not talking about living in Parkland.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about living in Montana. When you live in a place that is subject to weather events, it's not new this year. I was 2 decades. It's at least how Andrew was 4 decades ago. If you live in a place that is at risk, whether you make $10,000 or $10 million, you know that you're in a place at risk, and then your government tells you there is something happening right now. Get out. And then you purposely choose not to. And what Izzy's saying is, because I love my house, I will never abandon it. Or is that why they didn't? Or did they say they couldn't afford to go to a shelter? And I have great respect for that fact, but you're going to choose death or the possibility of death over the inability to go to a shelter?
There was 12 of us in the house, so we didn't have a car that could fit us all, or multiple cars that could get us out of there. And yeah, it was my dad's property. It's the only thing he owned in the whole wide world. So if he's going to leave, why would he leave that behind? No, he's going to stay there and trust that, he prepared us for it.
Is it noble when captains go down with the ship? Is that something that people think about?
In Titanic, I thought highly of that guy.
He didn't go down with the ship, man. He bailed.
What are you talking about?
The captain,
the main guy. The main guy grabbed it and went down.
The violins are playing.
Billy Zane?
I have a child.
You had Billy Zane instead of the captain? There was an opening there for Joe Biden.
Hey, who mentioned the economy, man? Folks.
Jeremy, Saturday Night Live is doing a good job with the political stuff, bringing in a whole bunch of people from the past to do stuff. What is the latest? Because Jessica just mentioned something. I don't know what our plan is here, but we should obviously not have anyone need to come into work if there's any sort of danger involved. But what are the latest forecasts for South Florida? Because I thought that that South Florida was going to largely be spared from everything that I have seen that's in the cone, and it's one of the few places that's going to be spared because it seems like this is a monster storm, and it seems like almost the entirety of Florida is in it. And I told you last week, Orlando is viewed as one of the safest places in the United States because it is a bit landlocked, but this is going right over Orlando, and this doesn't seem like something that's going to be safe in any way for Orlando.
I think the important thing is to follow the local warnings in your area. And in Miami, obviously the big concern is always flash flooding here because our infrastructure doesn't really stand up well to rain, any amount of rain, let alone perhaps a tropical storm like front of rain coming through. So I don't know what that means for us coming to work because this area, downtown Miami, floods when it drizzles. But it's something that people should be aware of and have a plan for if there's a ton of rain and if there's some bad winds. But yes, like you said, Dan, we're not in the exact path of it. So hopefully we are spared from some of the worst stuff.
But first you said that the forecasters aren't good. But now we're relying on the forecaster to make a company decision. And secondly, if you don't mind, I thought that we had a bunch of flooding here. Was it 2 months ago that half the people couldn't come in because there was major flooding?
We're going to get
Yes,
between
that's correct.
5 to 10 inches of rain. I don't know what that's going to result in flooding. And I would say of the forecasters, they have a general idea for a skeleton of what it is that's going to happen. They have not been inaccurate about what the track of this thing is. What they've been inaccurate about is how quickly it is elevating to speeds that are much higher than what they were talking about 2 and 3 days ago. The track has remained the same for the last 4 days.
Can I go through a company policy that I'd like to get buy-in? And I don't know that I will, but here it is. There are shows that go on. When there's a tragedy or a hurricane, you go to the news, there are people who are putting that on. There are people actually doing side-by-sides. Jim Cantori is a great example of a guy.
Essential workers.
Essential workers. That's what we are.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. And I will say that my expectation of Meadowlark is that we're doing shows. If you can't get here, I respect it. Take a personal day. If you can get here, then the show must go on. It's one little part of the country that is this hurricane. Not ideal, but the rest of the country, they want your show.
Is this a rah-rah speech?
Yes. Come to work.
You also don't have to drive to and from here. You're
I'm
staying
scared
here.
of the elevator breaking down, but I'm going to be here.
Okay.
You think we're essential workers? I think we actually got some sort of dispensation during the pandemic.
Yeah, Mike did, I think, because he was going to the studio, and you two were, and yeah, Mike was considered, because if he got pulled over, he had something to show them that he was
during
an
the
essential worker.
pandemic at ESPN. I do believe that we were considered essential workers somehow. I don't know how it is we got the special dispensation, but Mike was pulled over in traffic on the way to the Clevelander and was able to say, us.
What did that certificate say? Like, what essential thing was he providing?
Humor, distraction, entertainment.
Levity.
Jeremy, what do you have for us in terms of updates on this storm?
So in the time we've been talking, it's been elevated to a projected Category 5. And
That's not a joke.
And the winds are supposed to stretch anywhere from South Georgia to the Bahamas. So we are obviously in that cone of where the winds could be, depending obviously on where the eye of the storm breaks. But yeah, that's the spot that we're in now. As an essential worker, my only experience with that during COVID was working at Channel 7, where I just got these numbers from with Phil Farrow, and being told that our sports department that worked in a closet that was showing videos of Trae Young making baskets into his laundry. We were essential workers and had to come in and be around people for the sports department. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You're essential, Jeremy.
I got paid $12 an hour to risk getting COVID and giving it to family. What a nightmare that was.
You're welcome.
I have been calling Phil Farrow a weather terrorist for 15 years in South Florida.
He plays guitar in his office, and it's so calming.
That's terrible. Can you rethink that, please?
A weather terrorist.
Wearerist.
It's weather. The qualifier is on the front end of that. It's weather related because he's been a fearmonger for a long time, but I fear that he's going to be right this time. Let's segue into some lighter stuff. There has been, since David is partaking right here in what amounts to some cheerleading, and he's got a team that's not interested in any of his cheers. Like you're trying to rally the troops, and all of them are staring at you with something between indifference and disdain. Like this is, they're shaking their heads at you. No one is motivated by your speech. Let's work. It's worse than your let's have nuance speech from earlier in the show. Nobody, should we be making a decision? I realize that these decisions come to me. Should we be deciding now not to come into work on
You're
Wednesday?
asking us if you should decide something.
But I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen here in terms of flooding or what kind of danger we're actually in as we speak about this on a Monday.
Let's empower that room and say if you can't make it, we understand, we won't fire you. But if you can make it and you're on the schedule, the show will go on. We're not going to go blank for 4 hours because of rain.
I have a question, David, in terms of the company's liability that maybe you can answer as a lawyer. So if you say, hey, we have a show today, if you can make it, you should come in with the expectation that if you don't come in, there will be some sort of like, we're looking down at you a little bit. And then say someone gets stuck in a flash flood, maybe their car gets destroyed, maybe they even get hurt, or God forbid something worse happens. What is the company's liability in that case? Because I think there's two different approaches here, which is that everyone, it's not going to be a big deal. Everyone come in, just be a little cautious. Or the company makes the decision for the employees and decides we're going to be cautious because none of this is worth risk of loss of life.
Are we a play it safe company or a roll the dice company? That's really what she's asking.
So
we know the answer.
You're roll the dice, but you're willing to start a fund if one of the employees dies.
Can I get a hard 8?
Oh, for the love of God.
All right, here's the problem. We're not going to talk about people dying. Here's the problem with David's cheerleading, other than the fact that brings up
6 and an
employees
8.
dying.
No, I'm going to record that and keep that for legal reasons.
You're going to, because you want the trust.
Cheerleaders these days aren't your old school cheerleaders, David. You have to show, apparently, a toughness never seen before in the history of sports. We've had a couple of incidents lately. I forget which game this was, but there was one that was very popular last week or the week before where there was this one cheerleader doing backflips. And we have the video running now. It was before an Auburn game. The cheerleader doing backflips and just takes out. Is that an Oklahoma player? Absolutely takes out an Oklahoma player. Probably never been tackled that hard in his life, right? And so I'm like, all right, just a crazy coincidence. Somebody's doing backflips, don't really know what's going on. I think that cheerleader did that on purpose. This past week, I'm telling you, just to show off her toughness. This past weekend, there was a Texas Tech, I believe it was Texas Tech in Arizona game. And one of the players who came, didn't have the ball, came off the field, absolutely trucked a male cheerleader who had one of those big megaphones in his hand.
As they do.
Look at that. Yes, as they do. His knee got caught up underneath. It was just ugly. This cheerleader, hilarious face as soon as he goes down, looks at the crowd, makes sure this player is okay, and then goes off to celebrate his toughness. That's awesome. Oh, my goodness. This guy was amazing. It's a Texas Tech cheerleader, and never before has somebody been prepared for that moment more than this guy, because he absolutely made a viral moment out of a spot where he could have taken every ligament out of his knee.
Izzy, both of those videos are breathtaking because in both instances, the football player is absolutely taking the worst of the physical collision by miles. In both instances, the cheerleader is largely fine, and in the second one, jubilant. and the football player is limping away from the collision in obvious pain and disrepair. Both of those. The first one's amazing, though, because you've got
Quick correction on that one. It might have been a male cheerleader.
The Oklahoma team is running out of the locker room, and it's, 75 Sooners are running out from the locker room, and this is always amazing. The cheerleader is doing about 10 straight backflips and runs straight into the player in a way that knocks the player down and leaves him in disrepair.
The best part for me of this video is that there's a few players that see the flipping cheerleader and they're like, oh, let's get out of the way. And then just one guy that doesn't see him just jogging and just gets cleared out.
You wouldn't expect the Red Sea to part when you're walking on the outside as the player was. You don't expect that flipping cheerleader to make it all the way to you.
Are we working Wednesday?
Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
Today's stat of the day is brought to you by Venmo.
I thought you guys would give me some buy-in when I said that Kirk Cousins in his last game threw for more yards than the Patriots had thrown for in their first 4 games. You guys yawned in my face on that stat.
No one is surprised by how bad the Patriots are, though.
We're all usually yawning while we watch the Patriots play, so that's probably why.
For 509 yards in one game, and the Patriots have 4 games and come in at like 444. Okay, I'm not going to convince you of it. Yeah, it is October. Jeremy, what do you have for us on the stat of the day front?
I have 3 different baseball stats of the day. A couple of them come from the Phillies-Mets game because that game was out of control. It was 3-0 Mets, and then, to reference back to the earlier parts of the show, all hell did break loose in this game because Bryce Harper started the scoring with his 2-run home run for the Phillies. And Bryce Harper teams in the postseason have now won 12 straight games in which he has homered. So that's stat number 1. 12 straight games in which Bryce Harper is homered, in which his team has won in the playoffs.
David Sampson has been very hard to impress today conversationally with anything we're talking about.
King of poo-poo.
You guys have broken a show record for shaking your head at things that are being said by a single person. Why did you so with your hand that as if it's not an impressive stat that every time Bryce Harper homers through the last few postseasons, and incidentally, he's one of the best postseason players ever empirically and statistically. Why are you saying, that's just an okay stat?
Because the stat is that when you homer or out-homer your opponent, you're going to win the game.
Of course, but it's the longest streak in baseball history of a single player.
It's pretty good.
He extended his
Pretty
own. Good. All right, fine. So he maybe didn't have the best day of everybody on the Phillies. Nick Castellanos himself had a crazy day because he was being booed by the fans. You could see him on TV basically telling the fans to F off.
Home fans.
Then he hit a game-tying homer and ultimately walked it off. But I would argue that the best day of anyone on the Phillies was Bryson Stott. He's the first player with a go-ahead hit in the 8th inning or later of a postseason game on his birthday. How about that one?
That's a good one.
What a birthday. That's amazing.
That's a universe of how many people are in that category.
Could cut that laugh up.
I can't imagine there were so many guys to play, but that's a pretty special stat. That's a pretty special birthday.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care.
And finally, today's stat of the
Jeremy,
day.
respect Jeremy, respect the bleeping happy.
Good luck,
Jeremy.
Come on.
So,
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Stop talking.
Honestly, you're so eager to talk all the time, Jeremy, that you disrespect.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care.
So
Good
can I go?
luck.
Oh,
Come on, man.
Get out, Jeremy. Get out. Get out, Jeremy. I don't even want your third stat of the day.
It was our only hope, though.
I don't want it.
The third
I don't want
to
it.
make Venmo happy.
I don't want it.
Oh, they're happy.
Make sure that he pays his $5 that he owes.
Via
because
Venmo.
I'm so tired of people around here getting out of all of their fines because they say, I'll get you later.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Make sure that somebody gets his $5.
I have it. I already did it. I got the tenor for you, Izzy. Where is the fine bucket?
The tenor?
Nobody's ever said that word in their life until you just now.
A tenor? Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Have you ever referred to a $10 bill as a tenor?
A
Five
10 ski.
You can say a 5 ski.
What's the 10 then? A 10 ski?
Yes. I don't know why we're making it Polish. I don't know why we're making a Polish currency of some sort. Jessica, we haven't talked enough college football today, although we did talk a lot of University of Miami. Give me something college football related, anything at all. You can choose from anything on the wheel of college football issues that you wish to talk about.
Okay, I want to talk about the Texas A&M Missouri game. So something very strange happened before this game. Missouri's one of their wide receivers went to the hotel room at College Station where they were staying and had a package in his room that had a blanket that said "Warm Welcome to College Station," and it was a Texas A&M blanket, and it was supposedly from a Texas A&M DB named Mike the Blanket Lee. So he walked out onto the field wearing the blanket, and it was supposed to be like a, I'm going to blanket you during the game. You're not going to get any receptions. I don't know why I felt like I had to explain that part, but it felt like it was necessary. So the wide receiver is like, I got this weird blanket. He wore it out onto the field before the game. And then he proceeded to have a terrible first half. Missouri got blown out. They kicked the saddest field goal I think I've seen in, honestly, probably a few years. They were down, I think 41-7 when they kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter. It was not very becoming of a top 10 team. So anyways, after the game, Mike Elko, the head coach at Texas A&M, was asked about this blanket thing. And they were like, did you do this? Like, why did you put a blanket in his room? And he was like, no, you should ask them about that. They did the blanket gimmick to themselves. And we had nothing to do with this. So I'm still investigating the situation to find out who put the blanket in the hotel room. But either way, if Missouri's head coach did the blanket thing to his own player and then they lost by 31 points, ew.
He tried to
Fireable offense.
He tried to do fake bulletin board material. Like, you don't have enough here, so I'm just going to make up a controversy.
The idea that an opposing player would send a gift to somebody as trash talk. First of all, I think it's next level. But then the coach but somebody doing it as a fake, I think that is nonsense.
I don't like gimmicks like this. Gimmicks like this only work if you win. Gimmicks like this when you kick the saddest field goal that I've seen in 10 years that is a tough look. Not to mention, Missouri got totally blown out of this game. Texas A&M had a outstanding game offensively. Connor Wigman was back. He finished in I want to say 90 percentile plus in EPA per play and every other offensive metric in that game. And then the defense had 5 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. So Texas A&M, they completely kicked their ass. And this blanket gimmick just makes me feel like I feel awkward. I'm cringing a little bit at this.
The Texas A&M defensive line is supposed to have a couple of guys who, maybe 3 guys who are top 100 picks. But speaking of gimmicks here and things that blow up in your face, I want to show the people. I don't know if people saw yesterday that Odell Beckham made his return for the Dolphins and was wearing a truly wonderful and outlandish, flamboyant hat made of an assortment of furs and feathers. And if you're going to come in with that hat upon your triumphant return, you have to do slightly better than 0 catches for 0 yards.
I thought it was John 3:16. Was that not what he was going for?
You think that John 3:16, that's a biblical fur and feather hat? You believe that the feather and fur hat is John 3:16? I don't know what it is that you're doing with that hat. That doesn't look like a biblical times hat. I don't know.
You're going to have to explain this one to me, David.
There was a guy who would go to football games in a wig, and he would hold up a sign. John
you're talking about,
3:16.
yes, many years ago, Monday Night Football, there was a famous fan who would just wear a crazy wig. You thought that was a wig, that's not a stylish hat that Odell Beckham is wearing.
This was Odell Beckham paying homage to this person that only you remember.
I promise you, I'm not the only one who knows.
He
the
would
John
wear a wig
3:16
and
guy.
hold up a biblical sign because he was Marlins man before Marlins man.
You old.
I thought you were saying that he was paying homage to the Bible verse, John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave the world his only begotten son.
2 targets.
That's John 3:16. He wore a wig that was multicolored. Make fun of me all you want because you've been doing it all show.
Okay.
He is currently serving 3 life sentences in prison.
It's not ideal.
John 3:16 is?
John 3:16 is. He was arrested in 1992 after a standoff at a Los Angeles hotel. I'll find more details and get back to you. But pretty amazing that we'd reference that guy and he's now in jail for the rest of his life.
3 life sentences. You want to give us your third stat of the day? You redeemed yourself with that factoid. You want to give us your third stat of the day?
Today's pitcher for my Detroit Tigers, Tarek Skubal, his opponent's OPS over the last 2 years is .553. The only American League pitcher with a better run over 2 years in the last 50 is Pedro Martinez.
He's really good.
That's a good stat.
That's a great stat.
Jay, I need your help. Unfortunately, I'm a Steelers fan. I need you to tell me why the Steelers offense is what it is, even after hiring a new offensive coordinator and getting Justin Fields. Started out 3-0, had a good game against the Colts, and now what happened on Sunday Night Football?
Here's the thing with the Steelers. Steelers, every game, like Steelers football, every game's going to be close. They want to run the ball. They want to run with defense. They're hoping the quarterback doesn't screw up, hoping the quarterback makes just enough plays. That is my team football. That's what it is. And when they brought Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, they told both of them, this is how it's going to be. It's not going to be a high-flying offense. We're not going to be out there trying to throw for 450 yards. This is what it's going to be. But also, like Justin Fields, he's a reclamation project for them. So it's not everybody wants him. You know, the first couple of weeks he was doing great, but he's got a little bit ways to go.
I know. I mean, Mike T football is great, and the defense up until the end they played great. But
love it when you win 16-15.
It's hard to watch week in and week out. And now I'm wondering what's going on with George Pickens. I'm seeing that he didn't play very many snaps on Sunday Night Football. Do you have any idea what's going on there?
No, I didn't. I haven't talked to them, from last night to this morning there. But Pickens is he's their guy. He's the number one guy on that, that team. They work, trying to. I will tell you this: when they were in the Brandon Ayuk trades, and the 49ers were looking for another receiver, and they brought up George Pickens, Steelers were like, no shot. Absolutely not. No, we're not even going there. So they, George Pickens is very, very talented, but he's like a lot of receivers. You got to make sure that you kind of handle them in the right way.
Shanahan's 49ers had been 38-0 when leading by 10 points in the fourth quarter and blow yesterday's game to the Cardinals, giving up 11 in the fourth. I want to know the sneaky impact here. Jake Moody makes a tackle in the second quarter, ends up out for the rest of the game, impacts the 49ers' ability to go for any field goals in the long run. They end up blowing this game. How much is Jake Moody attempting a tackle going to influence the NFC playoff picture down the road? Because I believe this tackle ultimately changes everything as the Cardinals get to 2-3 and the San Francisco 49ers drop to 2-3.
You guys stop drug testing over there at the Le Batard Show?
I wish I could get him to talk slightly less, slightly more efficiently when he talks. I have not been able to achieve that quite yet. Do you have an answer to what it is that he is saying there, though, about the 49ers looking less good than any of us thought that they would look?
Yeah, last night I was just texting John Lynch about it, and he was just, it's like, They're off kilter right now, but the 49ers are always that type of team also that as the year gets on, like later on, they're the team that you just don't want to face later on. They're going to, I have zero questions about whether the Niners be a team you want to face down, toward playoff time, down in crunch time there. But I think that, they've had a lot of things that have kind of thrown off their rhythm. One, Ayuk, the preseason 2 with Trent Williams, Ayuk, I think they got thrown off by there. Ayuk, really waiting until week 5 to get on his track. All the injuries, the Christian McCaffrey injury, obviously, I get little Frenchies going back there. Kittle, Warner, they've had so many different injuries there also. But when it comes down to it, man, a Kyle Shanahan team is going to be a dangerous team later on.
But without Christian McCaffrey, and you've got people suggesting that maybe it might be a very serious injury long term, might even be the same player.
The problem is with that injury is kind of this inflammation. Like you don't really decide when it's there and when it goes, and also like it can come back fully. Like he could be great, and all of a sudden, boom, it could just grab again. It's so kind of a weird injury.
What do you make of Davante Adams putting up Edgar Allan Poe on his social media?
What do you put up? I don't follow. I try not to follow social media anymore, man. That's what my wife is for. She looks at all that crap.
Well, people assume that it's because, quote the Raven evermore, that it's the poem. What are you making faces at me?
He's not going to go to the Ravens. No, not going to go to the Ravens. That's what we're saying. But here's the thing. Davante, like last Sunday, is that what we put up? Last Sunday, they think that's hilarious.
It's hysterical. It is. It is. You can't help but laugh.
I'm not trying to talk over this. I don't know how to do it.
It is
like
funny.
I hardly get speechless, as you know.
It's funny. Where is he going to end up, and what?
Both the Raven
off my screen, man. Yeah, it's just and then I wanted to say something snarky there, where I'm like, that's why I'm not on social media. Like, hey, what is social media going to say? If I say something bad about Edgar Allan Poe, I'm not going to get that wrath. He
you don't want the Poe zealots to come out after you. They're like they're worse than the Swifties. Everybody knows that.
Rest in power.
We don't want the posers attacking me. Leave me alone. Crushed Sunday, and like last Sunday, everything's fine. Before the game, during the game, after the game, great. He comes in Monday morning. He calls up. He texts Antonio Pierce like, "Hey, I need to meet with you." And AP thought it was about the hamstring, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I'm out. You got to get me out. I don't want my career ending like this. I'm gone. I'm out." And instead of saying, "Well, we'll see. We'll decide," they just kind of granted it and let teams know it's a 2+ if you want it. But I'll say this: there are people in the organization. There are teams that called about Davante. The Jets did, the Niners did, all these teams in the preseason. And Tom Telesco, their general manager, said, I got to give Antonio time with him. We got to give AP a chance. But there are other people in the organization who said, man, we should trade him because we don't have that quarterback of the future, and he's going to get frustrated. And eventually this is going to lead to this anyway. So let's kind of do it. However, with that said, look, the Jets are in, the Saints, they're in, Steelers play them next week, so maybe they'll look at it also. The Ravens, though, love their team chemistry. I don't see the Ravens making this move. And there's not a lot of teams who have the cap space to just bring him in as it is. Like if the Saints want to do it, they're going to have to like redo his deal or have the Raiders take on some of the money, which they don't want to do. So they'd have to like redo them to an extension where a team like the Jets don't have to do it. So there's a lot of factors involved there.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
I should have told
you. Who drank a lot of Smirnoff is that Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, everyone knows that about all the posers. A toast from the posers to Edgar Allan Poe.
Trying to get back on their good side. Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate that. Aaron Rodgers, his performance on Sunday and in general, what are you making of what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, it's some of it is like, man, it's not Aaron Rodgers-ish, right? But I think we're kind of almost taking away the fact that, man, the guy missed a whole year. He just missed a whole year, right? Missed an entire year. Didn't do any preseason with these guys. The timing is just not what you want it to be. But I'm a little surprised. The running game's not going better. Defensively, that unit still is like personnel-wise, they've got a fantastic team over there. Personnel-wise, they're fantastic. So yeah, a lot of it falls under on Aaron, and they put so much on Aaron to be the savior over there.
Tell me, Jay, what happened with that cat? I want more information on that.
Oh, it's a dog. Okay. It's a dog. Not only is it a dog, come here. Where's Lucky? Not only is it a dog, it's a little handicapped Frenchie that we rescued from a kill shelter. Okay. Oh. And like these people were like, yeah. So now I'm making you feel bad. But these people like brought him into a kill shelter because his legs don't work anymore. And the kill shelter's like, well, there's non-kill shelters here. And whoever brought him in is like, nah, it's okay. His legs don't work anymore. So we rescued him. And my wife, Rosie, there did like massage and laser. And here, baby.
He's got speed. He scampered. He scampered.
And she got him walking and running. Here, come here, man. He's making a little cameo. See? Hey, here he is. See?
Yes.
Hey. Yeah. Hey. By the way, Lucky, huge Edgar Allan Poe fan.
Yes, as we all are. What do you make of what happened with Josh Allen, the Bills, and specifically the time management at the end of that game, Jay?
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense right there, that time management. I think the Bills, though, it's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's getting rid of one guy, but they do seem like more of a team. I kind of don't look at it and go, team by game by game. I kind of don't judge them. I judge them more, but by what I think is the whole product. And I think the whole product as a team, they do look better. They do look like they're more on the same page. When you don't have to force the ball to one guy and you don't kind of have that drama anymore, I do think they're a better team. I think the clock management was a head scratcher. Yes. The coach got to kind of get out of the way there. Yes.
Let's put up on the screen here Stephon Diggs giving Josh Allen the side eye at the end of this game here between.
But didn't they love each other up or no? Do they?
Well, we prefer to accent the negative and the side eye from Stephon Diggs. There may be great context here, and they said all the right things.
He could have been looking at somebody over there. I don't know.
It could be. You're right.
Very telling, I think.
We're probably.
It's like those lip readers who come on. I'm like, you're so full of shit. You don't know what these people say, or the body language experts.
Agreed. Totally unfair, but funny nonetheless. It was a weird game, though, for Josh Allen. He played very poorly. And also, Jay, the science of he seemed pretty clearly concussed. Like he needed to be out of that game, did he not? The science on how they put people in and out of the game seems fairly arbitrary still.
But it is hard to do that because sometimes, if you're dinged, man, I'm usually the worst guy to talk about head injuries with, guys, because my other job was to remove you from your consciousness. So I'm usually a bad guy to talk about this stuff. We used to spar in practice, and you get knocked out, they pull you aside, they give you smelling salts, and you come back later that day or the next day. So there's kind of different levels. So it's I'm always kind of like, oh man, I'm the fucking worst guy to talk about these things.
Jay, when Joe Burrow says his team is not a championship caliber team after scoring 38 against the Ravens in overtime, is he just calling out his defense right there?
No, I think they're kind of looking at, look, first of all, they have been decimated. That defense, like Lou Anarumo, that defense coordinator, and that side of the ball, they are phenomenal. And they have been decimated by injuries, starting all the way back in camp. And there's only it's like the Rams. There's only so many injuries you can kind of go through. There's so many teams that are dealing with that right now. There's only so much you could overcome. And I think he's frustrated because they're not playing at the level that they're normally used to playing at. And also like, hey, if you're on an NFL roster, you're expecting a guy to, hey, next man up. But that's kind of like cliche. It's not the truth. It's like you can't have next man up. If you got, if Puka and Cooper go down for the Rams, you can't just assume, the next two guys are going to be on their level. It's the same thing with, guys over there in Cincinnati. And they've had a lot of drama, right? With Chase going over there. And T. Higgins was legitimately banged up. But I just think that they've been so banged up. They are Zach Taylor. People always talk about the Sean McVay coaching tree with LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell. And you forget Zach Taylor for some reason. He is, that's one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL over there. And I just think that they've just kind of been behind the eight ball with so many injuries.
With all those injuries and some of the other team struggles, Jay, how bad is the AFC? I feel like this is the worst conference I can remember in years, all the way down. There are so many weaknesses. After the Chiefs, who are undefeated, I mean, every single team has weaknesses. Even the Ravens gave up 38 points in their win. Like there have been these teams that have.
They gave them 38 in their what?
I know they won. The point being is that I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, the depth within this conference, there is just a giant drop-off of talent after those first handful of teams, and even those handful of teams seem to have some major weaknesses, no?
Yeah, I think every team in the league has pretty much weaknesses, but even the Chiefs, they got weaknesses at receiver. They got weaknesses at tackle. That's how this league is, but no, I think the Chiefs, they're going to, as they get healthier too, at the receiver position, they'll get better, if they get more depth over there, if they figure out their tackle situation more. But the Ravens, man, no, that place is a culture of violence. They are, and plus two, like they got like pick your poison. Now that they got Derrick Henry rolling like that, like who are you going to focus on? You can focus on Derrick, you can focus on Lamar, but you're expecting everybody else to play like, man, they're the 72 Dolphins every single game. That's not how this league is. But I think the Bills too. I think the Bills are, besides a brain fart and that some time management over there, I think the Bills are a team who are up here when it comes to ranking the teams in the NFL.
Jay, good talking to you as always. I don't think that the Ravens can have a culture of violence if the Steelers have the culture of violence. You said last week that they can't both have the culture of violence. One of them needs to have the culture of violence.
It's not exclusive.
It is exclusive. Jay, it's got Jay.
No, it's not copyrighted.
Good talking to you.
I should copyright it.
See you later. Good talking to you.
Yeah.
Enjoy talking Edgar Allan Poe with you. Good seeing you.
Yeah. Keep non-drug testing over there.
David Sampson's primary contribution today was to tell us again and again what month it was, as we talked about the, things that happened in sports yesterday, which is indeed during this month. He didn't think it was relevant that the University of Miami won the way that it won. I will be on Nothing Personal with David Sampson all week. You can find it 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube live every weekday. But Izzy's got a top 5 list of the top 5 comebacks in University of Miami football history. Jess, did you ever find out whether or not this can classify as the biggest victory in Vanderbilt sports history of any kind, the victory over Alabama? I don't believe they've had as big of a victory in basketball or baseball that I will remember like that one, but I'm doing it off the top of my head. I don't remember any Vanderbilt sports achievements in my lifetime.
Well, I think it depends about the amount of importance you place on college football, Dan, because I don't know. David and Jeremy might argue that a World Series championship.
College World Series
twice.
Didn't know they had won the College World
twice,
Series.
Yes,
okay,
recently. I think 2019, right?
14 and 19. That as more?
No,
not?
I would not.
I mean, but college football, am I right?
Yes, put it on the poll, Juju.
You need to say more?
What's more impressive, beating Alabama in football or winning the College Baseball World Series twice? Because I really was just doing basketball and football, so that's an ignorance on my part. What does your top 5 list look like? Do you have any OLI, Izzy?
Before we get to the OLIs, of which I have 2, University of Miami has a long history, Dan. That's a lot of potential comebacks. It's been a lot of decades going on. I'm only 47. I was alive, but I don't really remember a lot of those 80s ones. So I made the list basically from the time that I graduated college in 1999. That makes sense for everybody, right?
Sure. Okay, yes, the last 25 years,
there
basically.
We go. So it's the last 25 years, and there are 2 OLIs.
All right, quarter century of comebacks. David, do you think that the victory over Cal is going to make his top 7 here?
Well, with 2 OLIs and only doing it to 1999, yes, it better, or else we
let's
spend
see what
40
we've got.
minutes
Let's
for
see
nothing.
what we've got. Yes, 40 minutes. It was almost 50 minutes we spent on that University of Miami victory. What's your first OLI, Izzy?
OLI number 1, October 23rd, 1999, 15 years after Hail Flutie. We all remember Hail Flutie, where they beat the Hurricanes on a Doug Flutie Hail Mary. The Canes rallied from 28 points down in the third quarter to beat Boston College in Boston 31-28. Call that the Kenny Kelly era, if you can even call the Kenny Kelly era an era. Can you say that?
You
I can't
you
say
cannot
that.
say
I
it.
cannot
You
say that.
you
very
have
well.
cut that up for me, Chris, so that at the end of this I can play for Izzy how poorly he said Kenny Kelly. The other OLI.
The other OLI is this comeback currently happening by the University of Miami. Look, the amount of shit we've had to take over the years, whether it be from you or from Mike Ryan or even Stugotz saying, hey, the U is back, the U is back. And we had to go through coaches like Al Golden and Manny Diaz and Randy Shan and still believe that they're back. This kind of feels like the realest they're back. So this comeback currently is OLI
number 5.
Number 5, October 12th, 2002, extending their winning streak to 28 games. The defending national champion Hurricanes come back from 14 down in the fourth quarter against hated rival FSU. You might remember this one as wide left.
This is they were down 19-3 in a fourth quarter against FSU, but that might have been previous to '99 because that was like Michael Irvin.
It also didn't feel the same way this one did. The Hurricanes were number one. They had this really long winning streak. It was FSU at home, and they came back after being down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Dan, pretty big.
I'm looking right now at Kenny Kelly's because I don't know who Kenny Kelly is. I've got Kenny Kelly was a Major League Baseball player in the 70s. I got Kenny Kelly singer. I'm not remembering a Kenny Kelly era of University of Miami football.
Okay, well, we're going to have to look that one up. Number 4, September 6, 2003. Trailing 33-10 in the third quarter to the hated Florida Gators in the Orange Bowl. Not done. Former Florida quarterback Brock Berlin, who transferred to Miami, scored 28 unanswered points for the Hurricanes for a 38-33 win.
Rest in peace, Kenny Kelly of 90s R&B group Riff.
Don't think that's him. Number 3, October 31st, 2015. It was just a 3-point comeback, Dan. It was just a 3-point comeback, but it included 6 seconds and 8 laterals. Okay, and of course, Cornelder ended up winning it, taking it to the house to beat number 22 Duke in Durham.
Is a 3-point comeback a comeback?
It's a comeback because there was 3 points down, and there was 6 seconds left on the clock. Think about that. You have to come back in 6 seconds, David.
It was one play.
Okay, huge comeback. Number 2, October 5th, 2024. Coming back down 25 in the third quarter to Cal in a classic Atlantic Coast Conference rivalry game within, again, I said this earlier, spitting distance of the Pacific Ocean that began the Hurricanes Cal game at 10:30 Eastern Time.
Number 1.
Number 1, September 27th, 2024. This comeback came with no time on the clock. Can you get more impressive than coming back with no time on the clock from that ridiculous touchdown call against Virginia Tech in the Hail Mary? If they didn't have replay, would have immediately gone down as a top 3 worst call in the history of sports, but the Hurricanes prevailed, coming back and winning that game after review.
Jeremy, can you tell me where I stand corrected on the Kenny Kelly era of
Thank you, Jeremy.
University of Miami quarterbacking?
Kenny Kelly was drafted to the Tampa Bay Rays in 1997 out of high school, but forwent going to the minor leagues to play college football at the University of Miami. He was the starting quarterback in 1999. He then had a storied career in Major League Baseball in which he had, I believe, 87 at-bats.
Give me, please, the sound, Chris Cody, of Izzy trying to say Kenny Kelly correctly.
The Kenny Kelly era, if you can even call the Kenny Kelly era an era. Can you say that?
No, you can't.
The Kenny Kelly era, if you can even call the Kenny Kelly era an era. Can you say that?
By the way, Vanderbilt won a national championship in bowling in 2023.
Wow!